channel.
Hi there, I'm Michelle Dewberry and I'm going to take a second to tell you all about my show, Dubes & Co. We start off with the issues of the day. We then bring in both sides of the argument. We get rid of the disrespect. And then you throw me into the mix. And trust me, I'll tell it exactly how it is. And then, of course, the magic ingredient, you at home. We mix it all together and what have we got? In my opinion, the best debate show in town. Monday to Friday, 6 till 7 on GB News, Britain's news channel.
I'm Patrick Christie's. Every weeknight from 9, I bring you 2 hours of unmissable, explosive debate and headline-grabbing interviews. What impact has that had?
We got death threats and the bomb threats on.
As time passes,
She could have saved Storm.
you made my argument for me.
My guests and I tackle the issues that really matter, with a sharp take on every story.
Went everywhere.
Something practical could be done.
I can become something different.
Patrick Christie's tonight from 9 p.m. only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
We're proud to be GB News, the People's Channel. And as you know, we always love to hear your views. Now, there's a new way of getting in touch with us at gbnews.com/yoursay. By commenting, you can be part of a live conversation and join our GB News community. You can even talk to me, Bev Turner, or any of the members of the GB News family.
Good afternoon, Britain.
Your lunchtime update on the stories that matter across the UK.
From breaking news and insightful analysis, inspiring stories and lively debates. You're comparing yourself to a former Prime Minister.
Which is it?
Stay informed, stay updated, stay entertained.
I just don't know how anyone would not want to be there.
Every weekday from midday,
We are Good Afternoon Britain, only on GB News.
Britain's news channel.
I'm Stephen Dixon, and thanks for joining us on GB News, Britain's news channel.
Every Saturday, 10 till 12, we'll bring you all of the news that you need to know. We'll also remind you that there is so much to smile about.
It's my favourite time of the week. I get to relax, enjoy some light-hearted stories, and let Ellie teach me about fashion too.
That's Saturday Morning Live, every Saturday, 10 till 12.
Only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
I'm Emily Carver. This is GB News, Britain's news channel.
A tearful Trump arrives at the Republican National Convention in Milwaukee.
That's as Ohio Senator J.D. Vance is announced as his running mate.
Donald Trump now formally nominated as Republican candidate ahead of an official confirmation later this week.
Donald J. Trump. Donald J. Trump.
Donald J. Trump.
Donald John Trump.
President Biden gives his first interview since the shooting, detailing his call with Donald Trump.
I told him how concerned I was and wanted to make sure I knew how he was actually doing. He sounded good. He said he was fine. And he thanked me for calling him. I told him he was literally in the prayers of Jill and me.
Heartbreak for Jay Slater's family as human remains are found by mountain rescue teams in Tenerife.
And the King and Queen continue their tour of the Channel Islands today after being upstaged by 2 frisky cows.
And as Wales looks to ban sugary drink refills in cafes, bars and restaurants, is it time to get tougher on sugar?
I'm still over the 50 cows here. And in sport, will he stay or will he go? Gareth Southgate considers his future as England manager. The Lionesses play Sweden tonight, must avoid defeat or there'll be no Euros for them. And why Carlos Alcaraz was late for the Wimbledon ball, I think you can probably guess.
It may not be as wet as yesterday, but there is the risk of some thundery showers, particularly in the east of Scotland. I'll have more details coming up shortly.
Hello there, nearly 2 minutes past 6 on this Tuesday morning. Good morning to you, I'm Eamonn Holmes.
I'm Isabel Webster and you're tuned in to GB News Breakfast. Do you like my cow joke?
You know
One
what?
is not a moo.
You know what? I think it was John Cleese, formerly of this parish, that said the secret of comedy is no puns, and no puns. So I was amused. Honestly, I tell you though, I do want to mention something though that is the national anthem is obviously very important. It's being heard quite a lot in the United States at the moment. And there's a rendition that I have for you that was at the baseball, which was yesterday, and it was a big home run competition. So all the greatest baseball players around the country stand there and stand to the national anthem, and it has been, well, it's a questionable.
Have you got a copy of it?
Yes, I have, yeah.
Is it going to shatter glass?
It really is. So
maybe the reverse.
So what it is, we just need to avoid, if you're near it, if you've got anything glass around, move it away at any point.
Well, yeah, and could I just go back to the cows? Are they lesbians, those cows?
Oh, I've no idea.
Oh, I see what you're saying.
Yes, well, you see, they're two female. Cows are female animal, right? And they're two female. So we'll just have a look at them again, and they seem to like each other a lot. No reproduction can take place there, so they must be gay cows.
Or they're just, you know, being frisky.
So it's a frisky bull and a cow is what you really...
No, it's just, you know, shenanigans.
Friendly shenanigans.
Just shenanigans. You see that a lot in
the
farms.
Yeah.
With anything and everything that moves, anything that has a pulse.
I'm no expert in these things.
There we go. No, anyway, thank you, Paul. See you 20 past 6. Tearful Donald Trump's arrived at the Republican National Convention, and it comes after he picked bookies' favourite, the Ohio Senator J.D. Vance, as his running mate.
Well, it is the first public appearance from the former president since the attempted assassination over the weekend. Well, it was quite interesting that he decided to make that announcement yesterday. Bookie's favourite, of course, J.D. Vance, but quite a controversial character. Just a couple of years ago, he called Trump America's answer to Adolf Hitler.
But he may have meant that as a compliment.
He said anyone who was voting for Trump was an idiot. He is a former venture capitalist and a former Royal Marine.
He's a hillbilly senator.
He's also written this book called The Hillbilly Effigies. Not sure what that's about, but we will be digging into exactly who this J.D. Vance is, what it will mean for a possible Trump presidency. Complete polar opposite, I'm told, to Mike Pence's former running mate or vice president, who, of course, was a very strict conservative. I would be interested to hear whether J.D. Vance is popular. He's certainly the bookies' favourite, but will he be popular with the electorate?
Come the election in November, the question is, are we going to see a whole different Donald Trump, a Donald Trump that will try to unite rather than divide? Let us know your views. Get in touch the usual way. You can have your say by getting in touch with us the usual way, which I don't know what it is.
It is gbnews.com/your say. But we can speak now to the governor of Republicans overseas, the chair, in fact, and that is Greg Swenson. Good morning to you. Lovely to see you. J.D. Vance, what do you think about him?
Well, he's a really likable candidate. That he's a different candidate than I would have expected from an electoral perspective. So, you know, he's in the same lane as President Trump. He's definitely a populist. He's got an appeal to the same kind of voter. So it sort of reinforces the populist wing or the populist view of President Trump. But he's 39 years old. He's younger. He's going to appeal to young people. He's also from Ohio. He's going to have some appeal to the Midwest and especially upper Midwest, which is really important in this election. The three swing states really are Michigan, Wisconsin, and Pennsylvania. It looks like President Trump will sweep the southern swing states, basically effectively sweep the South of the country, with the exception of New Mexico. And so, it looks like, with Michigan, Wisconsin, Pennsylvania in play, someone from Ohio has a real appeal. That Ohio borders both Michigan and Pennsylvania. And he's got the sort of, he wrote the famous book, Hillbilly Elegy. So, this is someone who is going to appeal to a certain demographic, but not necessarily a certain type of political demographic.
Call it the famous book, The Hillbilly Elegies. Forgive us, we're none the wiser. What is this book famous for? Hillbilly refers to somebody who's a sort of what we would call a country bumpkin, often viewed as not perhaps that worldly wise. It's almost an insult to be called a hillbilly. What's this book about?
Yeah, so he wrote a book. This is after his life experience. He grew up in a very difficult environment, in one of these Rust Belt towns that was abandoned, and that's why he wrote the book with that title. And it was about growing up in very difficult America, and that's very much what the populist appeal of the last decade was all about, was the forgotten man, basically. And so he's got a really interesting life story, and a great story. He was raised by his grandmother, because his father, he didn't have a father, and his mother was an addict, and grew up in one of these really depressing towns whose best days are long behind it. And sort of again a Rust Belt town that probably lost a few factories to China, to offshoring. I mean, the really sort of sad story about the transition to a service economy from a manufacturing economy. He joined the Marines and went to Ohio State and then Yale Law School after the Marines, which is sort of an unusual order in this day and age. So he turned himself into a real success story.
But he's made these inflammatory comments in the past, not least about Donald Trump, calling him Adolf Hitler and people who voted for him an idiot. But also in the immediate aftermath of the shooting at the weekend, he was one of the first out of the blocks to come out and accuse the Democrats, to accuse Biden of being responsible for this, for their inflammatory language, which is not necessarily that helpful, is it?
Well, he's like President Trump in many ways. He says things that people are thinking, and sometimes it doesn't come across as polite. He's had experience in polite society. He went to Yale Law School, which is rather elite. But look, he's a say it like it is person. So that was his view, and he doesn't filter it. And it's not necessarily my view. Or I should say, I would probably have filtered it. I would have probably been more polite about it, even though I might think it. And so, these are the things that happen when I think when one party or the other are completely dependent on demonizing their opponents. And I think that's unhealthy. Now, again, I think a country club Republican of the past would probably have been more polite and just ignored it. And I don't think he's that type. So he is, younger, more aggressive. He's a senator from Ohio now. He only won his Senate seat by 7 points. And I say only 7 points because the governor in his election in 2022 actually won his seat by 27 points. So, he sort of underperformed. And because I think he was associated or affiliated with Trump in an election cycle where President Trump didn't do that well. But politics changes quickly, as you all both know. I mean, 2 years ago, I think Trump had a difficult. Trump and his allies had a difficult election, and really things have turned around. I mean, I never would have predicted this 2 years ago. I've given up on predictions.
Presumably, Greg, he unites the party, or he brings at least two differing sides together.
Yeah. I mean, I don't know that I would agree with that because, again, J.D. Vance is from the same kind of political lane as Trump. However, he does appeal to the young, and he appeals to some geography that I think is really important in this election. He doesn't bring a state. Ohio is very much a red state, and Trump's going to win Ohio, no problem. But he has that appeal to Ohio, Pennsylvania, and Michigan. And also, you know, the other difference with this election, or this choice, I should say, is, you know, I think President Trump is so much more confident in winning. So I don't think he depended too much on the nomination or the vice president choice as perhaps he would in a really close race. Now, that might be overconfidence, but also you have both Ron DeSantis and Nikki Haley coming to the convention to speak. Now, that's really interesting to me because I didn't think Nikki Haley would ever come to the convention. Ron DeSantis more likely, but he had his difficulties with President Trump. And when I say difficulties, you know, Trump has a loyalty test, and the fact that Governor DeSantis and Governor Haley both ran in the nomination against Trump really made it difficult for this president. I think he's changed a bit. I think he's gotten over some of his personal grudges, his disagreements. He's much more disciplined in this campaign. He's, especially after Saturday, he's going to be much more prone to try to unify the country, not just the party. The party's unified. I'm here in Milwaukee at the convention. The party is energized and so much more unified than it was even a few months ago. During the nomination process,
Greg.
you had some...
You're not going to Milwaukee?
I am in Milwaukee.
Oh, you are. Forgive me. I was misreading
yes.
the... Okay, superb.
Greg, good talking to you wherever
always.
you are. Thank you very much indeed. Always nice to hear from you. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
A body believed to be that of the missing British teenager Jay Slater has been found in Tenerife. Formal identification is yet to take place, but the remains were found with James's clothes and possessions.
Spanish rescue teams made the discovery yesterday morning, with the Guardia Civil suggesting that the person may have suffered an accident or fall in an inaccessible zone.
Well, let's speak to former Scotland Yard detective Peter Blexley on all of this. And as we say, formal identification not yet, but the police seem pretty sure as to what they've found and who they've found.
Yes, indeed they do. And the formal identification will most likely come through DNA testing. There will be a post-mortem which will try to establish the cause of death. But unfortunately, if this is Jay's remains, having been out in the open air for 4 weeks, there will have been significant decomposition of the body, and it may be quite challenging to establish the cause of death. But I mustn't jump the gun. We shall have to wait and see. And I shouldn't think we'll have to wait very long for a post-mortem. Possibly today, tomorrow. The DNA testing might take a little bit longer.
The fact that he was found so close to his last known location as given out by his mobile phone, this may just have been a horrible accident.
It would appear that the Guardia Civil, the Spanish police, were perhaps right in their thinking from the beginning. They focused their search in and around this incredibly difficult terrain of gullies, ravines, caves, and the such like, and huge undergrowth, which is sometimes impossible to navigate. They stuck to that theory. They didn't listen to all the other noise being created on social media platforms, the gossip, the rumours, the conspiracy theories. And so I think at the end of the day, bearing in mind that they were the best informed group of people out of anybody, I think they will probably say to themselves, we were right at the start, we were right throughout, and now our procedures have probably been vindicated.
Except the proximity to where he was last seen will make a lot of people raise their eyebrows and think, well, how thoroughly were they searching in the first place? No?
Yes, it will. But of course, Tenerife is a comparatively small island, and therefore law enforcement don't have the facilities and the resources that you might expect in mainland Spain, for example. We know that they deployed a helicopter, drones, a mountain rescue team, firefighters who were used to putting out bushfires in this kind of terrain. and some of their own officers and dogs, for example. But this territory is so inhospitable and is so difficult that even if they'd been able to scramble a battalion of 1,000 soldiers, for example, they wouldn't have been able to search every single square inch. But after they told the public they were cancelling the search after 12 days, which did attract some criticism, understandably so, it would appear that they've gone about their business away from the public gaze and away from media scrutiny, and that they have, of course, tragically found these remains.
Okay.
Peter, thank you very much indeed. We'll leave it there. Thank you. The King and Queen were forced to briefly cut short an engagement in Jersey yesterday because of a security alert.
Yeah, proved to be a false alarm, but heavy downpours didn't damp Their Majesty's spirits either. They were highlighting the special and historic relationship between the Channel Islands and the royal family, which stretches back centuries.
Our royal correspondent Cameron Walker with the story.
The moment the Queen was hastily ushered to safety following a security alert in Jersey's capital, St Helier. She and her husband, King Charles, forced to cut short an engagement showcasing the island's industries and net zero targets in an open-air location. Royal sources have now confirmed after every precaution was taken, which appears to include taking cover in a nearby hotel, the small issue of concern turned out to be a false alarm, and Their Majesties resumes the day as normal. The King and Queen are on a 2-day visit to the Channel Islands, their first since Charles's accession, and represents the special relationship the royal family has with the bailiwicks, which dates back to the 1100s. The mace, gifted to Jersey by Charles II way back in 1663, took part in yesterday's special ceremony with King Charles III in Royal Square.
Mr. Bailiff, I am most grateful to you and to the States for the warm welcome you've extended to both my wife and myself, and for the assurances of devotion, loyalty and allegiance to the Crown you have expressed on behalf of the people of Jersey.
Pomp and pageantry as well as heavy rain follows the King and Queen from the UK. A royal gun salute was fired by the 1781 militia before the King met local lawmakers. And homage was paid. The royal couple gifted locally laid duck eggs as a symbol of sustenance, as well as 7 Jersey cows, which will be taken to the King's Highgrove estate. Although the Queen got a bit of a shock when 2 of them started the breeding season early. They finished the day with a tea party, attended by veterans, royal patronages and emergency service workers. Today, Charles and Camilla travelled to Guernsey for an ancient ceremony in honour of the island's monarch. Cameron Walker, GB News.
And a look now at some other stories coming into the newsroom on this Tuesday morning.
Prime Minister Sir Keir Starmer has announced a comprehensive review of the armed forces to help prepare the UK for what he calls a more dangerous and volatile time. It comes after the PM used his appearance at the NATO summit last week to reaffirm his commitment to increasing defence spending to 2.5%.
Police have clashed with anti-immigrant protesters in Dublin. A number of people were arrested on Monday after protests targeted a former paint factory that is set up to now house asylum seekers. The Taoiseach Simon Harris has condemned the violence as reprehensible.
And Hollywood A-listers Ryan Reynolds and Hugh Jackman have made an unexpected appeal on behalf of the NHS. The pair co-star in Marvel's Deadpool and Wolverine film, which hits cinemas next week, and as part of their UK press tour, have released a video asking the public to become real-life heroes and donate blood to the NHS.
The weather situation, a little bird tells me tomorrow will be very, very good, but what will today have in store?
What was yesterday doing, honestly? It's like, when I think it can't get any worse. I was sitting at my kitchen table just watching the heavens unfold. We had thunder and lightning. We just need a plague of locusts and then it will be the whole complement of July weather. Anyway, sun's on the way.
Let's find out what today has in store.
A brighter outlook with Box Solar, sponsors of weather on GB News.
Morning. Here's your latest GB News weather forecast coming to you from the Met Office. After a pretty wet day for many of us yesterday, there will still be a bit of rain and some heavy thundery showers as we go through today. The most persistent rain will be early on, and that is gradually clearing away towards the east as we go through this morning. Elsewhere then, a fair few showers kicking off, particularly across eastern parts of Scotland and northeast England. Here, some of these showers are going to be heavy and thundery with some hail and some lightning mixed in. A scattering of showers elsewhere, driest towards western parts, and temperatures still a little bit below average for the time of year. Highs of around 22 or 23 Celsius at best. Not feeling too bad, especially as the winds in the southeast are going to ease as we go through the day. Taking a closer look at what's going to be happening this evening, and across many parts of Scotland, it's looking mostly fine and dry. A bit of rain perhaps out towards the Outer Hebrides, but some heavy thundery downpours still continuing across eastern parts of Scotland. A scattering of showers perhaps for Northern Ireland, and then a real west-east split in terms of showers when it comes to England and Wales through the end of the day. Eastern parts likely to see some further showers through much of the day. Meanwhile, further west, it's looking a bit drier and brighter as we go through this evening. Overnight, we are going to see many of those showers clearing away, perhaps a few continuing over parts of Scotland and perhaps one or two elsewhere. But on the whole, it's looking largely dry, and with some clear skies developing, I'm expecting temperatures to drop a little bit lower than you might expect. Perhaps away from the towns and cities, we could get into single figures, and there could be the odd pocket of mist and fog around first thing tomorrow morning. Otherwise, Wednesday actually looks like a fairly decent day. Yes, there will be a bit more cloud and some rain pushing into parts of northwest Scotland, and here the winds will strengthen, and otherwise we could see a few showers developing as we go through the day, but for many it is going to stay largely dry. There will be some decent bright and sunny spells around, and with that it's going to feel warmer than it has done of late, with highs in the mid-20s. Bye-bye.
That warm feeling inside. From Boxed Boilers, sponsors of weather on GB News.
The time is 23 minutes past 6 on this Tuesday morning, and it is time now to grab your chance to win £30,000.
Yeah, the Great British Giveaway is our biggest cash prize of the year. Here's how you could win it all.
It's our summer treat to you. Your chance to win an incredible £30,000 in tax-free cash. Our biggest cash prize of the year so far. With an extra £30,000 in your bank account this year, you could take the ultimate financial holiday and send some of those day-to-day financial stresses packing. £30,000 could get you those nagging home improvements done, buy that brand new car, or just enable you to kick back and relax for the rest of the year. For another chance to win £30,000 in tax-free cash, text cash to 63232. Text costs £2 plus one standard network rate message. You can enter online at gbnews.com/win. Entries cost £2, or post your name and number to GB07 PO Box 8690 Derby DE1 9TT. UK only. Entrance must be 18 or over. Lines close at 5 p.m. on the 30th of August. Please check the closing time if listening or watching on demand. Good luck.
The actor Kiefer Sutherland, who recently lost his father Donald, heads straight to Greggs for a sausage roll every time he arrives in Britain. So they have branches at airports as well. And Kiefer says that Canadians and Yanks just love a sausage roll. And did you know that that Greggs has a black card VIP scheme, which gives people like Stormzy and Ed Sheeran free sausage rolls for life?
I feel like you should have a
people like me who actually use them.
And talk about Greggs a lot.
Talk about it. Do I get a black card for anything?
It's in the post.
No, absolutely. Should be. Still to come. Up next, we've got Paul Coyte with the latest sports news. This is GB News Breakfast.
If you want your news to be straight talking...
This is a nightmare for the Conservatives again.
Down to earth.
It's not just Nottingham where this is happening, is it?
And most importantly, honest.
Hard-working, middle-class taxpayers, they'll get their book thrown at them.
Then catch me, Martin Daubney, Monday to Friday, 3 till 6 p.m. on GB News, Britain's news channel.
I'm Christopher Hope. From pop stars to politicians, I'll interview anybody in a pub who's got a political opinion. Join me every Friday on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, YouTube or gbnews.com, or wherever you get your podcasts.
This is GB News, the People's Channel.
In the GB newsroom, we bring you the news as it happens.
With our team of dedicated journalists across the UK,
GB News brings you accurate reporting of the day's topical agenda.
When the news breaks, wherever and whenever it's happening,
We'll be there.
This is GB News.
the People's Channel.
Britain's news channel.
Tune in to Friday Night Live with me, Mark Dolan.
GB News royalty with
Your perfect start to the weekend. Lucky us! Feisty and fearless guests.
Well, I'm a normal person, so ask me.
Honest opinions.
That raises more questions than a Gary Barlow tax return.
And a few surprises along the way.
Might be cold in this studio.
That is Friday Night Live with me, Mark Dolan. 8 to 9, only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Join me, Camilla Tominey, for a frank and honest discussion with those in power that cuts through the spin and gets to the heart of the issues shaping our nation.
You haven't confirmed that you want to stand as leader, but you haven't ruled it out either.
This report basically says that he's not fit to stand trial. Is he indecisive? Incompetent? I deliver the dose of reality Westminster needs. That's the Camilla Tominey Show at 9:30 every Sunday on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Hi there, I'm Michelle Dewberry and I'm going to take a second to tell you all about my show, Dubes & Co. We start off with the issues of the day. We then bring in both sides of the arguments. We get rid of the disrespect. And then you throw me into the mix. And trust me, I'll tell it exactly how it is. And then, of course, the magic ingredient, you at home. We mix it all together and what have we got, in my opinion, the best debate show in town. Monday to Friday, 6 till 7 on GB News, Britain's news channel.
Good afternoon, Britain.
Your lunchtime update on the stories that matter across the UK.
From breaking news and insightful analysis, inspiring stories and lively debates. You're comparing yourself to a former Prime Minister.
Which is it? Stay informed, stay updated, stay entertained.
I just don't know how anyone would not want to be there.
Every weekday from midday.
We are Good Afternoon Britain, only on GB News.
Britain's news channel.
So much England news to talk through now with Paul Coit. Main thing is that the team have arrived home.
They have arrived home. Post-mortem time, though. This is it. So it's now looking at what's going to happen with Gareth Southgate, whether he's going to stick around as the England manager. I don't know about you, but I don't think he is. I think he's going to go. I think he'll, as soon as possible, because obviously at this point, after the Euros, we're further away from another tournament as there is going to be. So it needs... If it's going to happen, you need to make your decision now and then get a new manager in.
So the next tournament is what, the World Cup?
The World Cup, which is in America and Mexico and Canada. So that's not for a couple of years. That's still 2020... Where are we? 2025, 2026. So, yeah, so 2 years away.
I love that you need to know what year we're in.
What year is it? I don't know what day it is. I don't know what year it is, for crying out loud. So
the question is, who would replace him if he did go?
Right. So... these are the runners and riders.
OK.
Eddie Howe is the first name that is coming to mind.
Very good choice.
Good choice.
Yeah.
I think the FA wants someone English to come in as the manager. Eddie Howe, there's not that many really good English managers, if you think about it. Did you know that
they're not given a chance, because they give chances to people like Mauricio Pochettino, who doesn't win anything, but everybody wants him.
Yeah, because he is a good coach, but
he doesn't win anything.
OK, fine. But the thing is, with English, no English manager has ever won the Premier League. Did you know that?
I did not know that.
No English manager. Scottish manager.
British managers.
But no English manager has ever won the Premier League. So Eddie Howe at Newcastle, see, he's earning very good money. And also, when you've got a Premier League manager, are they going to think about leaving the Premier League job, which is... you know, whether you say it's the ultimate or not, but the money, if you're a Premier League manager, you're on around £5 to $20 million a year.
Yeah.
The FA are going to pay £5. So that's what Gareth Southgate's on. The other one is Graham Potter. Now, Graham Potter, yes, another one that hasn't won anything, but with the right players, and he seems to have... it seems to be more of a new breed of manager, because the other argument about Gareth Southgate is that it's more of an old defensive style of football, and football's changing. And the players that he's had are more attacking players, and the system that he plays doesn't suit them. So really, it's getting a system that suits the players, and then we can move forward. So there's another one there. Thomas,
passing wing to wing, passing from the right side to the left side, well, who does that suit? It doesn't suit anybody. It's just that. Boring as heck.
Keeping the ball, just sideways, back.
I don't agree.
Other runners and rise, Thomas Tuchel. The other one is the under-21s manager, Lee Carsley, and that's from promoting from
Who's the
within.
guy that sits beside Southgate all the time? He looks a very familiar face, but I don't know who he is.
Oh, it's.
He just sits beside him. No one ever mentions him.
Yeah. No, he's been with him for some. Why isn't it ridiculous? The name's gone. The name's gone.
Okay,
Steve
Steve
Guttenberg. That's the fella.
Go. Well done.
Steve Holland. There we are.
Hollands.
Or sometimes known as Steve Netherlands. Steve Holland. You have to be careful of naming.
No, OK,
right,
listen.
Okay.
I want to go to America now because you talked about this national
You want to go
anthem.
straight to this, don't you? You want to go straight to the song.
No, you don't understand. You're fast out of time.
Am I really? Is it because I can't remember Steve Holland's name? Is that what it is? I can't remember the name. Get rid of him.
No, so who is the singer we're about to see?
Right, well, what we have in Major League Baseball, it's at the Globe Life Field in Arlington. It's the Home Run Derby. Country two-time nominee for Grammys, Ingrid Andress, stands in front of a packed field and delivers a very moving version.
So she's now. We're going to sing her. Oh, so say as you hear.
Not say as you see. Anyway, listen.
Anyway,
we can. There we go.
Oh, that's a bit pitchy, isn't it?
It is a bit pitchy.
On the pitch.
Yeah, exactly.
Oh, no.
I know. And the players have got a slight grin. Oh, no. Even the flag's drooping. Look. Go on. Here comes the big finish.
Cheered.
He wasn't even dressed for the occasion.
That's a little boo there. It's all about the finish, all about the end. Here we go. Big breath.
For the land of the free.
Oh, a little twiddle. All right.
Oh, Ingrid.
Wow.
Ingrid needs a lemsip.
Everybody tries to do the and she's just like, oh. There were dogs all around Texas that were like that.
Where's the volcano?
I know.
Oh, no.
It's a shocker. You know, I feel a bit hot just watching it.
Yeah,
you know what I mean?
I can't believe she's been nominated for a Grammy.
Yeah.
Shocking.
Yeah.
Maybe
Bless
if
her.
she sang it in a country
Bad
sort
day.
of way, that might have helped.
I don't know what
It was a bad day at the office.
One other really bad one in history, and I'll play it for you a bit later, and that's Carl Lewis. Do you remember the great athlete Carl Lewis?
Yeah.
He did one once.
Why would he sing?
I have no idea. You'll hear why.
Oh,
Shouldn't have sung.
goodness
We'll do that a
me.
little bit later.
Thank you very much indeed, Paul.
Pleasure.
Right, thanks, guys. Still to come, we're going to go through the front pages and the biggest stories of the day with the political commentator Alex Armstrong and the journalist Claire Muldoon. Stay with us.
The latest GB News travel.
Good morning, I'm Russell Holding. On the M1 in Leicestershire, 3 out of 4 lanes are closed southbound, where a vehicle overturned between junctions 22 and 21 from Ashby de la Zouche to Leicester, causing queues. Southern Rail services remain suspended between Watford Junction and Shepherd's Bush because of overhead line problems. In London, Abingdon Street's closed off Parliament Square, set up safety barriers ahead of the state opening of Parliament. From Essex into London, the A13 is closed in both directions after an accident last night. Westbound's closed from the M25 to the Ferry Lane interchange at Raynham, with queues from the Baker Street interchange at Tilbury, and eastbound's closed from Ferry Lane to the Wellington interchange. And in Surrey, the A24 remains closed northbound in sections from the A29 at the Bear Green roundabout to Leatherhead after a large diesel spill last week. And that's the latest.
You can stay up to date throughout the day by visiting our website, gbnews.com.
Good afternoon, Britain. Weekdays from midday.
An employment tribunal has found that a senior lawyer telling a legal secretary that she looked nice created an intimidating environment and made her feel violated.
Well, she's won her sexual harassment suit, so is saying someone looks nice acceptable in the workplace anymore?
Well, joining us now to debate this is political commentator Christine Hamilton, who thinks it should be, and author and journalist Rebecca Reid, who thinks making comments like these are unnecessary. OK, Rebecca, why is it unnecessary to tell your colleague they look nice?
Well, how somebody looks at work shouldn't be particularly important or relevant. But I think my issue here is that it's used as a sort of dismissive way to make women feel silly for complaining about things. Like, oh, it's just saying you look nice. Why does it matter? But we all know there are different ways of saying things. And if you are an older man in a position of power, looking a woman up and down and saying, oh, you look nice, in a lascivious tone, which, as far as we know, is quite possibly what happened, that's not acceptable. That's not workplace appropriate, and it would make somebody feel uncomfortable.
Christine, she's right, Rebecca, isn't she? It depends how it's said. If you've got someone who's sleazy saying, oh, you look nice, you're going to be a bit off-put, aren't you?
Yes, we don't know whether this was said in a lascivious tone or not. And as far as I can see, this particular case, the boss went too far and he did a lot of other things as well. But what worries me is that the tribunal has ruled that just saying you look nice could be included as sexual harassment. Now, I think that is ridiculous.
Realistically, women don't make these accusations for fun. Women don't make these accusations to be difficult. They do it because they've been made to feel unsafe or unable to work in a certain place.
GB News, the People's Channel.
Welcome back. We're going to take a look at some of the newspaper front pages now, and the Times is leading.
I thought you said to me,
sorry.
oh, make sure you read out comments.
I know, but then the director was like, front pages.
Well, we're going to read out comments. Forget the front pages there. The royal visit to the Channel Islands. Johnny went to Guernsey 4 times as a kid. Lovely island, lovely people, and the smallest church in Europe is also there. But they don't now grow tomatoes. Used to get tomatoes in Jersey and Guernsey.
There's some reason, I can't remember why. They've stopped doing it.
From Spain.
And also famous for Jersey Royals, the lovely potatoes. And you also get the lovely cream from the cows, the Jersey coos.
No tomatoes. It's like unbelievable. Yeah. And there's acres and acres of fields with smashed greenhouses and whatever. Derelict. Yeah.
Free Greggs, Lily's outraged. The rich and famous get free food from Greggs and those in poverty go without. What kind of world do we live in? William sharing that sentiment. Why should the likes of Ed Sheeran be privileged and get free sausage rolls he could afford to buy at the Greggs shop? It's very true. It's always the way that you find that celebs get all these invites to everything and don't pay for anything. And
what do you want from Greggs this morning? Do you want...
I'm not a big Greggs fan.
They open at 7. I'm sending out an order at 7.
I'm all right.
You've not got a black card with Greggs?
No, not yet. By the end of this morning, I think it's going to be on its way. I'm pretty sure.
Got one.
I wish. Poor old Stormzy, who obviously just needs his bacon and his sausage roll and everything.
Yeah.
So he's got one there as well. Right, thank you very much indeed for those. Now, Isabel, let's do the front pages.
Let's do the front pages.
Papers.
Yeah, let's start with what they are showing us this morning. We've just got to roll back on the autocue because they've moved on now, so just bear with us while we do that.
The Times leads with Trump racing ahead in key states after the shooting on Saturday. Here's the Telegraph. It leads with Donald Trump's pick for vice president, a hillbilly senator, and his name is J.D. Vance.
The Guardian leading with Trump. He's calling, hitting out at a witch hunt despite a pledge to unite the nation.
Daily Mail. It leads with health leaders saying that doctors told to lecture patients on climate change.
And the Mirror is leading with the body being found in the Jay Slater search after what's considered either an accident or a fall.
Well, I'm dying to know straight away why doctors are told to lecture us on climate change. Joining us to go through, political commentator Alex Armstrong, and Claire Muldoon is here as well. Royal College of Physicians guide tells medics to look out for eco-distress and promotes remote appointments to cut emissions. I had a bit of eco-distress today. I do think it's like the end of the world.
Yeah.
I mean,
Did you really?
It doesn't ever bother me.
No, my friend, I'm telling you, when you're as old as me, you've lived as long as I have, and you realise, and people say, oh, sure, this is just weather, and this is what the summer used to be.
Well, also, eco-distress means you're automatically entering this debate about whether or not there's climate change. There's incontrovertible facts that we're destroying all biodiversity that no one can disagree with. You look at the amount of wildlife that we've lost in the last 10 years. That distresses me, and that's not even opening up a huge debate about whether or not it's hotter or colder than it used to be. We're not looking after the planet, and we're not handing over a planet that is in a fit state for future generations. That distresses me.
No,
call me an eco-zealot if you want.
Fair enough, but then I find this message from the government really mixed then, because they're talking about net zero, but then at the same time they're like, let's build on the green belt.
This is from the Royal College of Physicians.
Or the green belt.
I suppose, Alex, it's a question of balance with it all. I mean, you look at Ed Miliband banning future oil drilling in the North Sea. Now, because it happens straight away, that might be regarded as, oh my God, too much too soon, and it may well be. But that's the stuff that gets the headlines, but that's the stuff that might need to be done.
Well, it might do, but I think we really need to get a grip, and we need to really establish net zero as a goal for this country, and it's putting people into poverty, and it's not helping the environment either, I don't think.
So not as an imposition, but as a goal. I mean, you can say this is 7 years away.
And it should be a movable goal. It should just be a target. And let's face it, some of the Euro targets were pretty off-mark. So I think the climate change should be off-mark as well.
I mean, I think when it comes to health as well, people, there's already this massive backlog of people who desperately need to get seen on the NHS, and to be lecturing people about climate change while those people are sick and need as much help as possible seems so out of touch. And I feel like it's that sort of that elitism that, you know, you should worry about your carbon emissions, by the way. You know, I don't worry about your waiting list.
There is better things to be doing with an NHS budget.
I think so.
But they're being told to look out for people who might be suffering from anxiety and depression caused by concerns about the environment. Well, I don't think that sounds like lecturing. I think that's a bit of a twisting of
I think if people are so anxious about that, I think there's precious little in their life they really have to be anxious about. It's nothing in comparison to what is going on in the real world at the moment.
I bet you that's a lot of young people that's aimed at, because I did see a report that is I think it's a really high amount of young people. I can't remember the statistic.
Oh, they need to get over themselves.
But this is the reason why it's like that, though, Claire, is because they're taught it in schools, and then the kids start to panic about it at school because they're going, the climate's big. I mean, I remember when I was at school, I was taught by 2030 half of London would be underwater, and there's this sort of message really can be quite distressing to young people.
Yes.
Well,
you know, Alex, I'm like you. I drive down by the Thames every day on the way into work, and I always think, oh, I wouldn't buy that flat. I wouldn't buy that. And that's going to be underwater. And why would anybody build there or buy there or whatever? So is it going to be underwater? It could be underwater.
The Thames barrier, so no, it won't go underwater, so you'll be fine. Let's talk about something a little bit less controversial then. Donald Trump's choice as his running mate. This is somebody who is anti-environmental regulation, so you'll probably like that. He's anti...
Could I just say, why do we care? Why do we care? He's never going to have any power. You know, unless Trump gets shot in the other ear. Yeah. But what, you know, why does anybody care who J.D. Vance is?
Well, it's a
my name's J.D. Vance.
Hillbilly elegy. That's what he's referred to, because he wrote a book about it.
So what does that even mean?
He's 39. He's had quite a turbulent childhood. He's now converted to Catholicism. He seems quite evangelical. What is he going to do? How is he going to underpin American politics?
But he doesn't have a say. He has no power whatsoever.
I disagree.
And Biden does?
Well, I disagree, because these are the two... I mean, if we look at Biden and Trump, these are the two oldest candidates we've ever had for president. So it's a high possibility... I mean, it's not... I hope this doesn't happen, but it's a high possibility one of them dies in office. So this candidate is really a message to the American public. This is the person that's going to take over for me.
Forward.
And he is being touted by the press as the heir to MAGA, the heir to Make America Great Again. He's the heir to Trump, a young man. He says everything. I mean, funnily enough, he did actually used to be very anti-Trump. One of his old statements said that he called Trump America's Hitler, which is quite a big turnaround.
He has publicly apologised for those comments and said that he regrets speaking badly, and he massively endorsed him and echoed the concerns that Donald Trump had about the legitimacy of the 2020 election. But he's also got highly controversial controversial views on abortion and on rape. He's called rape an inconvenience in the past.
An inconvenience?
Yes. He also is a Ukraine skeptic as well, which kind of follows perhaps in a little bit of Trump's stead. He's a very, very... I think it's a message. This is my platform. This is my successor. This is the person that I would like to see follow me afterwards. So I understand what you're saying, Eamonn. Trump is the figure. Whatever Trump says goes, even if you're VP. But I think it's a message.
He also came out with quite sort of inflammatory language after the shooting at the weekend, blaming Biden for it. And, you know, everybody else was calling for calm, and he went straight in.
Yeah, I mean, there's a big debate at the moment happening in the American sort of press and political spheres saying, you know, is our rhetoric too inflammatory? And I would say it is. And I think you can criticise both sides of that equally.
But post-shooting, pretty much everyone has been very, very calm and level in their language.
The Mail, the Washington Post are now coming out and saying that Trump is going to use speeches to unify the country
Well, he's
and
claimed that
unify
himself,
people and, you know, to try and promote a bit of levity,
bit of calm
and parity and calmness.
Well, we saw that with him meeting Robert Kennedy Jr. The other day to talk about how can we unify the country.
And he wants him to have beefed up security as well.
And he got it. He got it 2 hours later, funnily enough, from Biden. So Trump's next speech is, I believe, on Thursday. So we'll see if the rhetoric changes. It'll be really interesting.
I think it absolutely will. Yeah, he says he's ripped up his original speech.
Wow.
Claire, we believe that this body, or the police strongly believe, although there's no official identification, that the body found in Tenerife is that of the missing teenager, Jay Slater.
Yeah, I mean, his family are left devastated, as is reported here, across all the papers. It's hit most of the front pages. There has been no identity yet that the remains found are indeed those of Jay Slater. But it's just ridiculous and it's awful. The chap went missing, what was it, the 16th of June? They've had drones, they've had dogs, they've had men on the ground, they've had, you know, everybody looking for this poor lad that is now, the human remains have been found, so we'll wait and see if it is him. But the question I have, there's £54,000 in a GoFundMe. What is going to happen to that money?
People have the funeral, the repatriation of the body.
Well, if there's any of it left, because I think most of his family went over to try and find him. But I think there's a criminal case here as well to answer.
Why?
Because there's reports that he stole Rolex watches, there's reports that he moved away from this country under a black cloud. You know, there's lots of other things, and I don't think he's as saintly or, you know, as much of a loss, I mean, as it could be from this. So we'll just have to wait and see.
Yeah, obviously we don't know.
Exactly.
Can't sort of stand any of that up, and obviously may well be confirmed dead a little bit later on today.
Alex, here's a story. This is on the front page of the Times today. And just reach and get it here. This is more NHS cash is not feasible. Labour are spreading this message.
Yeah, so this is actually an old Blair advisor who's been brought back by Wes Streeting, a man named Paul Corrigan. He's a self-declared Marxist, actually, which is quite interesting. But you know, his rhetoric is actually very anti that. He's actually saying more cash isn't going to solve the problem. We have a productivity crisis. Despite actually putting more money into the NHS, productivity is down 11%. And so his argument is, well, what's the point ploughing more money into it? We need to reform it from the bottom up, which is really good to hear, I think, actually, because I think the NHS does need reform. It needs this...
Doesn't need any more money.
I certainly don't think it's going to change anything, Claire. So this is part of Wes Streeting's audit of the NHS, which he's going to call his tough love audit. It will then evolve into a 10-year plan. And part of this not feasible statement is because Paul Corrigan believes that GPs and carers should be paid to keep people out of hospitals. So I don't know whether that rhetoric is the right language, because I think if people need to go to hospital, they need to go to hospital. And I wouldn't like the message of GPs saying you shouldn't go to hospital, you should stay at home.
Well, accident and emergency is set up for precisely those two words, an accident and or an emergency. If you go into any A&E, and I'll swear on this, you go into any A&E There's no one writhing around in pain. There's no one gushing of blood. There aren't any, you know, lots of emergency vehicles coming in and out and out.
Toothache and an earache.
Yeah, that's true.
My baby's a bit hot.
That's true.
You know, what do? We need to educate people that hospitals and the NHS and A&E is purely for an accident or an emergency.
Yeah, no, I take your point on that, Claire. I take your point. I think mine was more worried about the rhetoric being used for other illnesses that should be seen. You know, there's obviously terrible cases where people should go to hospital and
But try to shift that, though, post-pandemic, Alex, onto pharmacists.
No, you're right. Yeah, I have noticed
but then
that.
should eco-distress be coming out of that budget?
No.
I mean, the point being that I think Claire and I would agree on this. There are basic, obvious things the National Health Service should be used for.
I agree.
And all this stuff around the edges.
Yesterday it was Viagra, wasn't it?
Oh, for heaven's sake.
Yeah, that's so ridiculous.
Gosh, you couldn't keep that up long enough, could you?
You say it's ridiculous.
From a pharmacist, can't you? Do you have to go to the hospital for Viagra?
but
Not laughing.
No, but you know,
same here. Just for the record.
Obviously, there will be people who that does cause genuine distress to. So therefore, should it be treated on the NHS?
Yes. Yeah. I mean, look, I think we're a country
or
that
is
has
it a personal responsibility?
Yes. We have a massive mental health crisis in this country. Social care needs to be sorted out. We need to get better at actually not using such ridiculous inflammatory rhetoric when it comes to people's mental health, because I think people are scarred enough from COVID, let alone anything else. And we obviously need to sort out first point of care in this country.
Yeah, ban oat milk. That'll sort them all out.
No, what do you mean?
Oat milk. It's a trigger for Gen Z.
It's a what?
A trigger.
What do you mean?
If they go into the fridge and there's no oat milk, my God, their day's finished.
Oh.
Yeah.
Right, well...
You know, encountered that.
Got me on that. I don't even know what oat milk is.
See, that's a proper man. That's a real man. That's a real man. That's why you're my favourite.
How are we doing for time? We've got time to... Oh, I'm going to have a look if there's something a bit more fun to end on. Oh, let's talk about our Jersey cows, shall we? Getting a little bit frisky yesterday. Express page 11, Alex, we are amused. I love this headline.
This is great.
Tickling me.
I mean, so obviously, I think you might have seen the images earlier on. You've got the King and Queen have been on a trip to Jersey. And, you know, as part of that, they're seeing a lot of the sights. And they happened to come across a couple of two Jersey cows who began the process of mating in front of them.
But they can't mate, they're two women.
Oh, was it two females?
I think if there was
I didn't know what gender the cows were.
I know, but bulls are massive.
A cow
very
is female.
dangerous.
It's a female definition.
Did you not know that?
A bull.
Look, it's
Alex, he's the metropolitan elite over here.
Give me a break. I've been raised in London my whole life. I see cows very far and few between.
Right. So a cow is a female gender.
Well, look, the article clearly says the process of mating.
I know,
right?
it's fine. We're being
What's worse is when I read the headline after the suitcase has been found in Bristol Suspension Bridge, I thought the Queen's in a suitcase in her visit to the Channel Islands.
But you know what I love about this story is that the one thing I do really love about King Charles and Queen Camilla is that they have a laugh.
Yeah.
They've got a sense of humour.
Especially Camilla, I get the sense.
Absolutely.
I mean, you think she's great crack.
Giggles. They get the giggles. And so I think we can all relate to it, because I think that's probably how we all feel, rather than them standing there looking mortified.
Yeah. Well, you can imagine the late Queen Elizabeth would not have probably fallen about laughing. She would have maybe given a wry smile.
Yes.
But Camilla a bit more relaxed than informal, which we all love.
Yeah, it's great to see. And also, you know, because there's been so much misery in the royal family, it's really, really nice to see a happy, more light moment, I think.
Yes.
And
two nice gay cows.
To get out. It's a very modern story, Eamonn, isn't it?
It was such awful weather for them yesterday, and poor King Charles on the front of the Times, absolutely blowing a hoolie in the Channel Islands, and they had their umbrellas. So
he looks happy.
He looks happy.
See you again in the next hour of the programme. Right now, here's Alex Burkle with the weather picture for this Tuesday.
A brighter outlook with Box Solar, sponsors of weather on GB News.
Morning. Here's your latest GB News weather forecast coming to you from the Met Office. After a pretty wet day for many of us yesterday, there will still be a bit of rain and some heavy thundery showers as we go through today. The most persistent rain will be early on, and that is gradually clearing away towards the east as we go through this morning. Elsewhere then, a fair few showers kicking off, particularly across eastern parts of Scotland and northeast England. Here, some of these showers are going to be heavy and thundery with some hail and some lightning mixed in. A scattering of showers elsewhere, driest towards western parts, and temperatures still a little bit below average for the time of year, highs of around 22 or 23 Celsius at best. Not feeling too bad, especially as the winds in the southeast are going to ease as we go through the day. Taking a closer look at what's going to be happening this evening, and across many parts of Scotland it's looking mostly fine and dry, a bit of rain perhaps out towards the Outer Hebrides, but some heavy thundery downpours still continuing across eastern parts of Scotland. A scattering of showers perhaps for Northern Ireland, and then a real west-east split in terms of showers when it comes to England and Wales through the end of the day. Eastern parts likely to see some further showers through much of the day. Meanwhile, further west, it's looking a bit dry and brighter as we go through this evening. Overnight, we are going to see many of those showers clearing away, perhaps a few continuing over parts of Scotland and perhaps one or two elsewhere. But on the whole, it's looking largely dry, and with some clear skies developing, I'm expecting temperatures to drop a little bit lower than you might expect. Perhaps away from the towns and cities, we could get into single figures, and there could be the odd pocket of mist and fog around first thing tomorrow morning. Otherwise, Wednesday actually looks like a fairly decent day. Yes, there will be a bit more cloud and some rain pushing into parts of northwest Scotland, and here the winds will strengthen, and otherwise we could see a few showers developing as we go through the day, but for many it is going to stay largely dry. There will be some decent bright and sunny spells around, and with that it's going to feel warmer than it has done of late, with highs in the mid-20s. Bye-bye.
That warm feeling inside from Boxed Boilers, sponsors of weather on GB News.
The latest GB News travel.
Good morning, I'm Russell Holding. On the M1 in Leicestershire, 3 out of 4 lanes are closed southbound, where a vehicle overturned between junctions 22 and 21 from Ashby de la Zouche to the M69 at Leicester. It's just the outside lane that's open, taking 50 minutes in the queues. Southern Rail services remain suspended between Watford Junction and Shepherd's Bush because of overhead line problems. In London, Abingdon Street is closed off Parliament Square ahead of the state opening of Parliament. From Essex into London, the A13 is closed each way after an accident last night. Westbound from the M25 to Ferry Lane Raynham, with queues from the Baker Street interchange at Tilbury, and eastbound closed from Ferry Lane to Wennington. In Surrey, the A24 remains closed northbound in sections from Bear Green to Leatherhead after a diesel spill last week, and in Somerset, the A303 is partly blocked by an accident at Buckland St Mary, causing queues. That's the latest.
You can stay up to date throughout the day by visiting our website gbnews.com.
£30,000 in tax-free cash really could be yours. It's our biggest cash prize of the year so far, and you could be getting that winning call from us to tell you that you're our next Great British Giveaway winner.
I can't believe this.
Oh my God, this is amazing.
That is absolutely fantastic.
We're over the moon.
I've never won anything like this in my life.
Oh, you shocked me. I never won a penny in my life.
If I was there, I'd buy you a drink.
For another chance to win £30,000 in tax-free cash, text cash to 63232. Text costs £2 plus one standard network rate message. You can enter online at gbnews.com/win. Entries cost £2, or post your name and number to GB07 PO Box 8690 Derby DE1 9TT. UK only. Entrance must be 18 or over. Lines close at 5 p.m. on the 30th of August. Please check the closing time if listening or watching on demand. Good luck.
In the GB Newsroom, we bring you the news as it happens.
With our team of dedicated journalists across the UK, GB News brings you accurate reporting of the day's topical agenda.
When the news breaks, wherever and whenever it's happening,
we'll be there.
This is GB News,
the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
If you want your news to be straight talking...
This is a nightmare for the Conservatives again.
Down to earth.
It's not just Nottingham where this is happening, is it?
And most importantly, honest.
Hard-working, middle-class taxpayers, they'll get their book thrown at them.
Then catch me, Martin Daubney, Monday to Friday, 3 till 6 p.m. on GB News, Britain's news channel.
I'm Emily Carver. This is GB News, Britain's news channel.
I'm Tom Harwood. This is GB News, Britain's news channel.
Good morning. A tearful Trump arrives at the Republican National Convention in Milwaukee.
As Ohio Senator J.D. Vance is announced as his running mate.
Trump now formally nominated as Republican candidate ahead of an official confirmation later this week.
Donald J. Trump. Donald J. Trump. Donald J. Trump. Donald John Trump.
President Biden gives his first interview since the shooting, detailing his phone call with a wounded Donald Trump.
I told him how concerned I was and wanted to make sure I knew how he was actually doing. He sounded good. He said he was fine. And he thanked me for calling him. I told him he was literally in the prayers of Jill and me.
Heartbreak for Jay Slater's family as human remains are found by mountain rescue teams in Tenerife near his last known location.
The King and Queen continued their tour of the Channel Islands after being upstaged by two frisky cows.
How do you follow that? Well, Wales looks to ban sugary drinks refills in cafes, bars and restaurants. So we're asking this morning, is it time to get tougher on sugar?
And in the sport, will he stay or will he go? Gareth Southgate's got a big decision to make. The FA want him to stay, the players want him to stay. The rest of us are not so sure. The Lionesses must avoid defeat against Sweden tonight to qualify for next year's Euros. We've followed it from Greece to all across France, but with 10 days to the Olympic Games, the flame finally arrives in Paris.
It may not be as wet as yesterday, but there is the risk of some thundery showers, particularly in the east of Scotland. I'll have more details coming up shortly.
2 minutes past 7 o'clock. I'm Eamonn Holmes.
I'm Isabel Webster, and this is GB News Breakfast. I can't believe the intense discussion that we've had this morning about whether it's a female cow or a bull or whether they're two girl cows or what's... Anyway, we've got far too involved in...
Cows are girls.
Farmyard matters.
So that's
yes,
like
so they are.
Two girls.
Yeah.
They're two cows.
Well, they definitely...
They're females.
Yes, no, I get it.
How many times have I decided
I wasn't the one questioning it. I was saying I'm surprised at the level of discourse about it this morning. Nevertheless, lovely to see Camilla having a giggle.
The phrase two frisky cows is much more comedic, though, than a bull and a cow, though, isn't it? Two frisky cows walk into Jersey.
Yeah.
You know, it's not... It's where you get songs... You know, people say that certain songwriters and singers then make people feel a little more amorous from the songs. Apparently, though, I heard that it's... that royalty actually has that effect on animals as well.
Well, we've actually got some footage of some koalas getting a bit steamy in front of the king. When it was Prince Charles and Camilla, they were in Australia. And I'm not quite sure what happens. I haven't seen the scenes for the first time myself.
Right, OK.
But I believe...
What, they don't...
They got a bit excited.
Well, that's a little eucalyptus there, I imagine.
Wow, the suspense.
What's going on there?
Not a lot, by the looks of it.
This is like the preamble, you see what's going on. They're just looking into each other's eyes at the moment. They're whispering sweet nothings to each other.
Well, we were...
I hope this is going to be worth the wait. Oh, look, a sweet little kiss. Crikey. That might have been a...
monarchy does that for me.
No, I'm not sure the monarchy does that for me either.
Apparently they got a room later, though. Apparently.
All right, enough.
Treehouse.
OK, on to other matters. Thanks very much there.
In the US, a tearful Donald Trump has arrived at the Republican National Convention.
Yes, all of this comes after he picked the bookies' favourite, the Ohio Senator J.D. Vance, as his running mate.
Now, this is the first public appearance from the former president since the attempted assassination on Saturday.
Well, joining us now is the deputy editor of The Spectator, Freddie Gray. And Freddie, your astute political nous actually called this some time ago. You thought J.D. Vance might indeed be the man.
It's very generous of you to call it astute political nous. I've made many bets, small bets on politics over the years and almost always lost. But in this instance, I bet on J.D. Vance a few months ago at pretty good odds. because I had a sort of inkling that it was going to be him.
What was your inkling? Why did you think he might be the one?
Well, I'd spoken to quite a lot of Republicans through my work, and a lot of them said if the Trump campaign is feeling good about itself, they will pick J.D. Vance because he's a good choice for the base. The movement likes him. Whereas
he's physically formidable. He's got presence there, you can see.
He's got presence, but crucially, he's not taller than Donald Trump, because Glenn Youngkin, who was hotly tipped by some people, would have been a very good candidate in many ways, but apparently Trump had no interest. Because Youngkin is taller than him.
Doesn't want anyone taller than him.
No.
Interesting. Well, Bill Browder, who's an outspoken Putin critic, has tweeted saying that big celebrations in Moscow at this news. Putin can't believe his luck. And he retweeted a quote of J.D. Vance saying, I don't really care at all what happens in Ukraine. So should we be worried here in Europe about that sort of position?
I think Britain's position on Europe could well be challenged under the next Trump administration. I think there's no doubt about that. I think you will get a lot of people who hate Trump and hate the Republican movement being very rude about J.D. Vance.
Well, that's not somebody being rude about him. That's somebody retweeting a quote that he made himself, saying he doesn't care what happens in Ukraine.
But, I mean, I don't think Putin was actually dancing. I don't think we can take Browder's word for it like that. But I think that, J.D. Vance is quite an interesting figure. He wrote this book, Hillbilly Elegy, which I recommend to anyone to read. It's a very moving story of a boy growing up very poor with a drug-addicted mother in Appalachia. And it's the sort of story that Americans love, and rightly so. It's very inspiring in many ways. He served in the Marines, and he is also, I think this is another crucial detail, quite dull. Not only is he smaller than Donald Trump, he's duller in person. He's good enough to communicate well, but he's not very charismatic, which means he's not actually a threat to Donald Trump.
Lots of reaction from you guys this morning to this appointment. Nico says, I think J.D. Vance is quite a savvy choice, a genuine American success story coming from a very difficult background. He has military service and was able to study law, and he's young, so tick, tick, tick for Nico. Rebecca, though, says J.D. Vance is not a hero. He voted against pro-choice and said women should stay in violent relationships for the sake of the children. He's no revolutionary, just another MAGA head in it for his own success. He does have some controversial views on particularly issues relating to women.
Well, he's anti-abortion, yes, but that's not necessarily a fringe position. I think that quote about him saying women should stay in relationships even if they're being beaten up is slightly twisted. I mean, his longer explanation was a bit more nuanced. He was saying, sometimes it's worth sticking in it for the children. You will be able to cherry-pick things he said over the course of his life and make him sound very controversial. He is, by British standards, very conservative. By American standards, I'd say less so. But he is, as I say, an interesting figure. And at 39, he's the youngest vice presidential nominee since Nixon. And given Trump's age, he could be, a two-term president quite easily. So he's somebody people should get to know a bit better, I think.
What about the polls that we're seeing in the swing states, 7 of them now, where Trump is leading? What does this mean for Biden? Because there's a school of thought that goes to say, look, actually, this is unwinnable for Biden now. So what is the point of keeping him as the nominee?
Well, this is why a lot of people think, since the shooting on Saturday, the chances of Biden being replaced have gone down. Because a lot of Democrats are now looking at this race and thinking, we just can't win.
Well, actually, but would that not put an argument for actually just replacing him because there's no point of even having him in it?
No, because who wants to run against the Trump machine now? Because it's never been more powerful than it is at the moment. That's not to say Trump's definitely going to win, because a lot could change. But at the moment, that's how Democrats are feeling. They're thinking everything is going wrong. Since that debate, everything seems to have been going wrong. Trump had more good news yesterday with the indictment being pushed down.
So let's talk about this. So this is a judge that Trump appointed himself, overturning this case on classified documents.
Yes. So essentially, the government will probably appeal it. But the indictment on classified documents, which is one of the 4 big indictments of Donald Trump, federal indictments, has effectively been kicked down the road way past the election. And probably by the time, if Trump is elected, probably by the time he's in power, it will just be quietly brushed aside. So all the sort of multi-pronged legal attack on Trump, a lot of it is breaking down now. And so you have the situation where a year ago we were talking about Donald Trump being in jail. Now it's looking like Donald Trump will be in the White House, and possibly all the lawfare against him will melt away.
Well, Freddie, thanks very much. We'll talk again later. Appreciate it. The time is 7:09, and a body believed to be that of the missing British teenager Jay Slater has been found in Tenerife. Formal identification yet to take place, but the remains were found with Jay's clothes and possessions.
Spanish rescue teams made the discovery yesterday morning, with the Guardia Civil suggesting that the person may have suffered an accident or fall in an inaccessible zone. Well, earlier, former Scotland Yard detective Peter Blexley had this to say on the rescue team's efforts.
Focused their search in and around this incredibly difficult terrain of gullies, ravines, caves and the such like, and huge undergrowth, which is sometimes impossible to navigate. They stuck to that theory. They didn't listen to all the other noise being created on social media platforms, the gossip, the rumours, the conspiracy theories. And so I think at the end of the day, bearing in mind that they were the best informed group of people out of anybody, I think they will probably say to themselves, we were right at the start, we were right throughout, and now our procedures have probably been vindicated.
Now we're going to go to our northwest of England reporter Sophie Reaper, who joins us from the Lancashire village where Jay Slater is from, and she will tell us more. Sophie.
Good morning to you both. Yes, we're here in Oswaldtwistle this morning in Lancashire. I was here 3.5 weeks ago, just a couple of days after Jay Slater first disappeared on the 17th of June. And on that day I was here 3.5 weeks ago, the church here behind me, the West End Methodist Church here in Oswaldtwistle, they held a vigil where members of the community, as well as Jay's friends and family, could gather here. They hung blue ribbons, some of which you can still see here behind me. They hung those as a symbol of hope, and they prayed for Jay's safe return. Now, the atmosphere here today, I imagine, will be markedly different given the news yesterday that those remains had been found, which are presumed to be those of the missing teenager. The church here behind me, they've told me that they'll be opening their doors once again today to allow members of the community to gather and to allow the church to support them in what they've described as a devastating time. Now, in terms of Jay's close friends and family, many of whom are still out in Tenerife, they've been carrying on the search ever since he first disappeared. His mum in particular has been out there for the entire 4-week period since her son has been missing. Now, we haven't heard anything official from the family or friends just yet. Of course, we are still waiting on the formal identification, whether or not those remains are confirmed to be those of Jay Slater. However, there's a Facebook group with over 600,000 members where there have been regular updates posted by close friends of Jay Slater's family. And last night, around 9 hours ago, the last post was just 7 broken heart emojis. So I think that really conveys to you the heartbreak that's being experienced by Jay's close friends and family. And I think that'll be something mirrored here today in Jay's hometown of Oswaldtwistle. Essentially, that hope having ebbed away now. The ribbons are still here, but it seems unlikely at this point, given those remains being found in the Mascar village, so close to where Jay's location was last pinged, with his possessions and clothing. It seems very, very unlikely that those symbols of hope are going to be anything tangible at this point.
We'll leave it there, Sophie. Thank you very much indeed. And a look at other news that you're waking up to on this Tuesday morning.
Prime Minister Sir Keir Starmer has announced a comprehensive review of the armed forces to help prepare the UK for what he calls a more dangerous and volatile time. It comes after the PM used his appearance at the NATO summit last week to reaffirm his commitment to increasing defence spending to 2.5%.
Police have clashed with anti-immigration protesters in Dublin. A number of people were arrested after protests targeted a former paint factory that is set up to house asylum seekers. The Taoiseach Simon Harris has condemned the violence as reprehensible.
And Hollywood A-listers Ryan Reynolds and Hugh Jackman have made an unexpected appeal on behalf of the NHS. The pair co-star in Marvel's Deadpool and Wolverine film, which hits cinemas next week. And as part of their UK press tour, they've released a video asking the public to become real-life heroes and donate blood to the NHS.
Characters have spilled countless hot tubs worth of blood in the name of entertainment. But don't worry, it's all fake. Mostly.
Real blood is harder to come by. That's why the NHS needs heroes like you to donate blood.
Have you ever done it?
I've tried. I've gone along and I've tried
they
to give my
couldn't get
blood. They
any.
wouldn't take it.
Why?
Because I'd been to somewhere that had required lots of inoculations.
You were full of alcohol or something, weren't you?
No, I'd had all those inoculations that basically taint your blood for years, so they wouldn't take it. And I haven't been more recently, but I have been given blood after having babies, and I had I lost lots of blood, so I should probably give back after having taken. I'll try again soon. Have you?
Yeah.
I think it's a really worthwhile thing. And I think that actually, you know, celebrities using their status for something like that, especially as Americans, I mean, what do they care about the NHS? Great to see, and I'm sure it will boost people doing it, so that's a good thing.
So get along, give some blood. The weather picture, not too bad today. Alex Burkle will tell you more.
A brighter outlook with Box Solar, sponsors of weather on GB News.
Morning. Here's your latest GB News weather forecast coming to you from the Met Office. After a pretty wet day for many of us yesterday, there will still be a bit of rain and some heavy thundery showers as we go through today. The most persistent rain will be early on, and that is gradually clearing away towards the east as we go through this morning. Elsewhere then, a fair few showers kicking off, particularly across eastern parts of Scotland and northeast England. Here, some of these showers are going to be heavy and thundery with some hail and some lightning mixed in. A scattering of showers elsewhere, driest towards western parts, and temperatures still a little bit below average for the time of year. Highs of around 22 or 23 Celsius at best. Not feeling too bad, especially as the winds in the southeast are going to ease as we go through the day. Taking a closer look at what's going to be happening this evening, and across many parts of Scotland, it's looking mostly fine and dry. A bit of rain perhaps out towards the Outer Hebrides, but some heavy thundery downpours still continuing across eastern parts of Scotland. A scattering of showers perhaps for Northern Ireland, and then a real west-east split in terms of showers when it comes to England and Wales through the end of the day. Eastern parts likely to see some further showers through much of the day. Meanwhile, further west, it's looking a bit dry and brighter as we go through this evening. Overnight, we are going to see many of those showers clearing away, perhaps a few continuing over parts of Scotland and perhaps one or two elsewhere. But on the whole, it's looking largely dry, and with some clear skies developing, I'm expecting temperatures to drop a little bit lower than you might expect. Perhaps away from the towns and cities, we could get into single figures, and there could be the odd pocket of mist and fog around first thing tomorrow morning. Otherwise, Wednesday actually looks like a fairly decent day. Yes, there will be a bit more cloud and some rain pushing into parts of northwest Scotland, and here the winds will strengthen, and otherwise we could see a few showers developing as we go through the day, but for many it is going to stay largely dry. There will be some decent bright and sunny spells around, and with that it's going to feel warmer than it has done of late, with highs in the mid-20s. Bye-bye.
That warm feeling inside from Boxed Boilers, sponsors of weather on GB News.
Well, look, another great chance now for you to pick up 30 grand in the Great British Giveaway, which we are now giving from us to you.
Yes, and here's how it could be yours.
£30,000 in tax-free cash really could be yours. It's our biggest cash prize of the year so far, and you could be getting that winning call from us to tell you that you're our next Great British Giveaway winner.
Oh, I can't believe this.
Oh my God, this is amazing.
That is absolutely fantastic.
We're over the moon.
I've never won anything like this in my life.
Oh, you shocked me. I never won a penny in my life.
If I was there, I'd buy you a drink.
For another chance to win £30,000 in tax-free cash, text cash to 63232. Text costs £2 plus one standard network rate message. You can enter online at gbnews.com/win. Entries cost £2, or post your name and number to GB07 PO Box 8690 Derby DE1 9TT. UK only. Entrants must be 18 or over. Lines close at 5 p.m. on the 30th of August. Please check the closing time if listening or watching on demand. Good luck.
Have you ever brought the kids to a restaurant where you get free top-ups with your drinks? Any worries about it?
I mean, they love it, but then we just put a bit of a cap on it. But I still don't think there should be unsafe levels of sugar in drinks, and I'm all for seeing a reduction in that, however
Well,
that might
we're
be.
thinking of banning such a practice, however good or attractive it may be, in Wales, right? So still to come, should restaurants stop offering free refills when it comes to sugary drinks. That's next.
Hi there, I'm Michelle Dewberry, and I'm going to take a second to tell you all about my show, Jubes & Co. We start off with the issues of the day. We then bring in both sides of the argument. We get rid of the disrespect. And then you throw me into the mix. And trust me, I'll tell it exactly how it is. And then, of course, the magic ingredient, you at home. We mix it all together, and what have we got? In my opinion, the best debate show in town. Monday to Friday, 6 till 7 on GB News, Britain's news channel. Good afternoon, Britain.
Your lunchtime update on the stories that matter across the UK.
From breaking news and insightful analysis, inspiring stories and lively debates. You're comparing yourself to a former Prime Minister.
Which is it? Stay informed, stay updated, stay entertained.
I just don't know how anyone would not want to be there.
Every weekday from midday.
We are Good Afternoon Britain, only on GB News.
Britain's news channel.
Join me, Nana Akwe, for an informative, interactive news programme with a difference. It's fun.
It's true. You're not wrong. No one will be cancelled. Lovely.
Join me from 3 p.m. every weekend, only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
In the GB Newsroom, we bring you the news as it happens.
With our team of dedicated journalists across the UK,
GB News brings you accurate reporting of the day's topical agenda.
When the news breaks, wherever and whenever it's happening,
we'll be there.
This is GB News,
the People's Channel,
Britain's news channel.
Join me, Neil Oliver, every Sunday night at 6 p.m. on GB News. And if an hour is not nearly enough for you, go to gbnews.com for special extended episodes online every Friday at 9 p.m, where we can truly get into the nitty-gritty of what's going on. GB News, Britain's news channel.
I'm Patrick Christie's. Every weeknight from 9, I bring you 2 hours of unmissable, explosive debate and headline-grabbing interviews. What impact has that had?
We got death threats and the bomb threats on.
As time passes, she could have saved Storm.
You made my argument for me.
My guests and I tackle the issues that really matter with a sharp take on every story.
Went everywhere.
Something practical could be done. Or I can become something different. Patrick Christie's tonight from 9 p.m. only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
Mark Dolan tonight is your weekend dose of news, debate and entertainment.
This sounds like a wild conspiracy theory.
Don't miss my big opinion. Mark Meets and my take at 10.
Democracy is a funny old thing.
And we don't do boring, not on my watch. I just won't have it.
Go and get another glass of that bubbly. You've earned it.
That's Mark Dolan tonight, Saturday and Sunday, 9 to 11, only on GB News. The People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Now, the Welsh Government have released plans that could see free refills of sugary drinks banned.
OK, now, this is an initiative to cut down on food and drinks with high fat, sugar, salt, to promote healthy choices.
So what do you think? Let us know at home. Is it time for a legal limit on sugar?
Joining us now, writer and journalist Emma Wolfe and...
the political commentator Nathaniel Ogonini. Good morning to both of you. Emma, I have a feeling I know where you're going to stand on this. You'll be absolutely in favour of restricting this. Tell us why.
Isabel, I don't think anybody needs free refills of drinks. We all know you get a large fizzy drink, whatever, with your meal, you take the kids out, maybe they have a pizza for a treat. Maybe they have a, some kind of treat fizzy drink. They don't need free refills. Nobody does. The government in England implemented a sugar tax in 2018, or it was 2016 to 2018, and it had a real impact on children's sugar consumption in soft drinks and in fizzy drinks. It cut their sugar consumption by about 50% for children. And that's really significant. And look, I don't want a nanny state. I know that we don't want the government telling us what to do and telling us what we can and can't drink and eat. But actually, obesity is a huge issue. Obesity is the #1 health issue in this country. Let's be honest, 64% of adults are overweight or obese, 64%. And we know where the free refills movement comes from, America, right? Do you remember? Used to go there 10 years ago and you get endless coffee and endless frizzy refills of soda and all of that. And where does the obesity epidemic come from? Where America goes, we're following. 64% of adults, a quarter of 10 and 11-year-old children overweight or obese. So let's just be clear, obesity is the health crisis in this country, and that's what we need to tackle. I don't care whether it's nanny statism or not, we need to tackle it.
Nathaniel, you have your doubts about sugar taxes, don't you?
I do. And so I'm inclined to agree on the point that obesity is a major health crisis, but these measures don't fundamentally cut that. So it's good that we mentioned the sugar tax earlier, because the sugar tax was introduced and obesity in England has continued to go up, right? So we see that these nanny state measures don't work. So it's good that we're talking about this, but these measures fundamentally don't work.
No, let's be clear about that, Nathaniel. No, what we have found from that research is that sugar consumption in children was halved. It went down 50% as a result of that tax imposed from 2016. You might well have seen obesity going across the board from other things, but the sugar intake was halved.
Yes, but so obesity is sort of about how big you are based on your calorie intake, but the intake from sugary drinks or indeed from free refills is actually quite low. And a good number of manufacturers changed their formulas for their drinks before the industry levy was brought in. So the tax didn't actually have all of that impact. And we could see that calorie consumption from sugary drinks was falling anyway. Between 2011 and 2016, calorie consumption from sugary drinks fell by about 5% anyway. So if it was falling, say, 5 years before the tax was introduced, then why are we suggesting that that impact is due to the tax? But more importantly, it's not just about sort of calories in versus calories out. We're talking about young children here. In Wales in particular, I think 50% of them don't meet the daily goal for activity levels. And that's a real shame, right? We need to get kids out playing football, playing rugby, being out with their friends. We know that's good for their focus. It's good for their attention. It's good for their behaviour in class. And it's good for their health.
Emma, the thing that amazes me is if the government knows that sugary drinks are bad for us anyway, why do they allow them to be sold? I mean, you could have this argument about cigarettes and the penalties that have been put on cigarettes, but we obviously still don't take it seriously enough, and the amount of sugary substances that is available for us to eat and eat as normal doesn't go down and isn't impugned in the shops. So why is that?
Well, just to slightly correct you on that, the amount of sugar has been reduced, and often they're replaced by sweeteners, artificial sweeteners, which we can also debate. They're not necessarily as good. You see very, very low-fat yogurts, for example, which are full of sweeteners. So often they'll remove things like fat or sugar, and then they replace it with something else. So you make a really, really good point. But look, cereals, cakes, sweets, but cereals particularly are a huge source of sugar consumption for children, for young children. So I would absolutely agree. Reduce it down gradually across the board. We've seen this in recent years with the reduction of salt in ready meals, which has cut, heart attack, disease, stroke across the population. It does work. Intervention, I would totally disagree with, it does work. Whether or not you want the government to impose taxes or to tell us what to eat and drink. But I mean, when we have such obviously problematic levels of obesity, which, by the way, like 2 diabetes, cancer, heart disease, all of those things, hypertension, amputations, blindness, disability, depression, the list is endless. Why would we not want to help people? Why would we not want to encourage them to make healthier choices?
Nobody's mentioned teeth in all of this either. Sorry, Nathaniel, I'll just add one more thing to that list before. Obviously, you can make your response, but of course, I mean, the biggest cause of children going into hospital under the age of 5 is tooth-related. And Eddie Crouch, chair of the British Dental Association, said that the sugar tax was delivering tangible results and that extending it to the likes of cereals is, in his words, a no-brainer.
Exactly.
Yeah, but as we've established, sugar consumption was falling 5 years before we got a sugar tax anyway, right? So I think it's wrong to attribute those measures to the sugar tax. But as you've said, dental health is important. That's about toothbrushing And that's about having a balanced and healthy diet. I'm not sure that free refills in a restaurant every so often is necessarily the biggest cause of that.
Sugar tax, yes or no, Nathaniel?
It's a no from me.
And Emma?
Absolutely, yes.
Okay, guys, thank you very much indeed.
Thank you.
It's up to you folks at home now. You've heard what the guys have had to say. You have your say on the programme today by getting in touch with us. We obviously have lost there it is there, gbnews.com/your say.
I also, just another argument in all of this, sorry, I'm just sitting here thinking about it all, and it's a tax on the people who decide to consume it, so they're paying more, and actually it reduces the tax burden on the people who aren't consuming it. But 50% of government spending is going into the NHS, very often for these people who've got all of these conditions that are being listed there. Well, actually, let the people who want to do it consume it, but pay for it through the sugar tax, and let the rest of us pay less towards the NHS. Just a thought.
Well, I remember when I was younger and I used to think I'll consume healthy stuff, and I used to think Lucozade was healthy, and
because it said sport in the word.
And you always got it when you were sick. When you were in hospital, you always got Lucozade. And the thing is, you'd be better off drinking a Coca-Cola than having a hamburger and chips, so you could have a Coca-Cola. And you realise all of this was wrong, and we're not being told the full facts. And government have a responsibility. The food industry must have very strong lobbyists to control government, but we don't get rid of the bad stuff, and we're being fed and poisoned by the food industry, and nobody is doing anything about it.
And you're absolutely right making that comparison with smoking. We've all kind of educated ourselves. It's quite obvious that that was creating huge problems and cost to the NHS. And Rishi Sunak and now Sir Keir Starmer is carrying through that pledge to make it illegal for children coming up through the ranks to ever be able to buy tobacco. Will we one day wake up to this epidemic of, as you say, poison that we're feeding our kids? Maybe, maybe not.
Never mind feeding the kids, you're feeding it all of us.
But you learn, it's a habit that you pick up from childhood.
Drink soft
drinks. That's what I mean, you learn that
whatever.
as a youngster.
But, you know, everybody's affected by this, not just kids. You're going to be affected by Paul Coyte next. He's got the sport for you right after this very short break. Don't go away.
The latest GB News travel.
Good morning, I'm Russell Holding. Trains have been stopped northbound from Morpeth to Edinburgh Waverley, where overnight engineering works have overrun. Southern Rail services remain suspended between Watford Junction and Shepherd's Bush because of overhead line problems. In London, Abingdon Street is closed off Parliament Square ahead of the state opening of Parliament. In Essex, the A127 is partly blocked westbound by an accident just before the Fair Glen interchange near Rayleigh. It's taking nearly half an hour in 3 miles of queues. And from Essex into London, the A13 is closed westbound from the M25 to Wellington after an accident last night. There are queues from the Baker Street interchange at Tilbury. On the M25 in Surrey, there's a lane closed on the anti-clockwise exit at Junction 7 for the M23 after an accident causing queues. And in Somerset, the A303 is partly blocked by an accident at Buckland St Mary causing queues. That's the latest.
You can stay up to date throughout the day by visiting our website, gbnews.com.
Good afternoon, Britain.
Your lunchtime update on the stories that matter across the UK.
From breaking news and insightful analysis, inspiring stories and lively debates. You're comparing yourself to a former Prime Minister.
Which is it?
Stay informed, stay updated, stay entertained.
I just don't know how anyone would not want to be there.
Every weekday from midday.
We are Good Afternoon Britain, only on GB News.
Britain's news channel.
Hi there, I'm Michelle Dewberry and I'm going to take a second to tell you all about my show, Jubes & Co. We start off with the issues of the day. We then bring in both sides of the argument. We get rid of the disrespect. And then you throw me into the mix. And trust me, I'll tell it exactly how it is. And then, of course, the magic ingredient, you at home. We mix it all together and what have we got, in my opinion, the best debate show in town. Monday to Friday, 6 till 7 on GB News, Britain's news channel.
Join me, Camilla Tominey, for a frank and honest discussion with those in power that cuts through the spin and gets to the heart of the issues shaping our nation.
You haven't confirmed that you want to stand as leader, but you haven't ruled it out either.
This report basically says that he's not fit to stand trial. Is he indecisive? Incompetent? I deliver the dose of reality Westminster needs. That's the Camilla Tominey Show at 9:30 every Sunday on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
I'm Patrick Christie's. Every weeknight from 9, I bring you 2 hours of unmissable, explosive debate and headline-grabbing interviews. What impact has that had?
We got death threats and the bomb threat and so on.
As time passes,
she could have saved Storm. You made my argument for me.
My guest and I tackle the issues that really matter with a sharp take on every story.
It went everywhere.
Something practical could be done.
I can become something different.
Patrick Christie's tonight from 9 p.m. only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
The business about these romantic cows on the Channel Islands yesterday in front of the King and Queen. Derek, who's a farmer, says that cow is not a lesbian in the countryside. When a cow, and these are Derek's words, inverted commas, he puts, rides another cow, it is known as bulling. Bulling, right? It is an indication that the cow doing the riding is coming into season and needs to go to the bull.
And Charlie says, I was brought up on the farm. Cows regularly do this all the time. Nothing unusual here. So there we go.
Something unusual here, Mr. Paul Coit. Very unusual man.
Yes, I am.
He is.
Unusual but quite charming, I think I'll find.
I'll take that, yeah.
And, right, so
you know what? There was a race yesterday. There was a race that was supposed to happen.
Oh, yeah.
At Newton Abbot.
Yeah.
But it was abandoned due to a waterlogged track, which is probably just as well. The 4:15 at Newton Abbot yesterday was the Well Done England Euro Champions 2024 handicap chase. So it's probably quite prophetic, the fact that it was all abandoned and waterlogged and they didn't have to run it anyway. They couldn't change the name of the race.
But the boys are home.
They are home, the boys are home, and getting some rest now before they go back to their clubs. The main talk is about Gareth Southgate. Is he going to stay? Is he going to go? What do you think? I think he's going to go
because he can't endure any more of this.
Right.
The constant questioning from not just us, but everybody.
But that's why he probably has to make the decision early.
Any manager,
I know, but that's why it must be a thankless task. I would sack it off.
Well, it is thankless task for £5 million a year.
It's not bad. It's not bad money, £5 million a year.
Somebody would thank me as less as that.
Yes, and also that means I know there's a little work behind the scenes, but there's only so many games a year, isn't there? You know, what do you have to do all day? So
I think I'd be bored as an international manager.
Do you think so?
Oh, there were so few games.
Yeah. I'd just be sitting out watching Homes Under the Hammer and something like that.
Do you know when people talk about international teams, they've got form, and England have done this before? They don't have form. Because they've played, the last time they were in a final was 2 years ago.
Yeah, that's right.
And you can't then say that they're on a run or anything if they're building the teams.
You can't get your momentum. You can't get any momentum, of course. But these are the names. Graham Potter being mentioned, I think, is probably the main choice. Eddie Howe.
Is he related to Harry Potter?
Yeah, that's him. That's the fella. Eddie Howe at Newcastle, unlikely. Pochettino, Thomas Tuchel. There's under-21s Lee Carsley. And then you've got Frank Lampard and Steven Gerrard. That's not going to happen, is it? And then Klopp and Guardiola. But then you've got to really break the bank. You've got to pay about 20-30 million.
OK. But meanwhile, the Lionesses, right, they have a big game tonight.
Well, they're struggling to qualify for the Euros. I always thought that when you win a tournament, you automatically qualify for the next one, which was usually the case with Euros and World Cup. Not with the Lionesses, so they're struggling to qualify for the Euros. They have to avoid defeat against Sweden tonight. If they do avoid defeats, if they draw or win, they're through to the Euros, which happens in Switzerland next summer. If they do lose, then they have to face playoffs, and then it could be the fact that the champions won't be at the next Euros, which, quite frankly, is unthinkable.
The Olympics are just 2 weeks away. The torches in Paris.
You know what? We've followed it everywhere, haven't we? We've followed it all across France. Finally, with 10 days to go, it's in Paris. Let's have a look at it. This is probably going to be our final look at the torch before it's actually lit.
Gosh, that's a heck of a
That's
run.
an interesting sort of
That was
run,
a sort
isn't
of, like, dressage.
I know. What was that? It was a little trot there.
Well, I think these are beautiful Parisian pictures without a riot in them. I mean, it's normally a protest or a riot. That looks very, very nice.
Give it 10 minutes, they'll start pushing. You can see there we are, the Arc de Triomphe. Oh, it's Marble Arch there in the background, you can see. And so there we are, going to the Blackpool Tower. I think that is there. And it looks nice. They've got the Olympic rings there on the Eiffel Tower.
And of course, they have all the singing and the big show with the pre-Olympic show and the post-Olympic show and whatever. And you're going to talk about these as well, from America, where they sing the national anthem.
I just love this. The Home Run Derby in Texas. They have a week where they have Hall of Famers and the All-Stars play. So anyway, they had a singer. It's at Globe Life Field in Arlington. So millions of people around America saw this. 4-time Grammy-nominated country singer Ingrid Andress.
Oh.
Here she goes.
It's so bad, I actually wonder if she's having a joke.
I think there's people that have got bandages on their ears, which is not a tribute to Donald Trump. It's probably to cover the sound that is coming out of the speakers.
Are people laughing?
Oh,
do you reckon she knows it's this bad? No. Or is she thinking, I'm really knocking this out of the park here?
She's a little bit pitchy on the pitch.
I think so.
OK, but is she alone? Has there been worse than her?
Do you want to hear the end? OK, can't stand anymore? OK, if you think that was bad. Carl Lewis, with the Olympics coming up, one of the great athletes in 1984, 4 Olympic gold medals.
Not renowned for his singing.
Not really. I think he did actually release an album.
Did he?
I've got a feeling he did, but I don't think it sold too well. This is him. This is about 20 years ago, and this is another one of the great versions of the national anthem that Carl Lewis did. So far, so good.
Oh, say, can you see?
Good.
And the rockets.
Oh. Did he say uh-oh?
Thanks, Paul.
Pleasure.
Very much.
Could I sing
you two when you're normally singing
maybe
in the morning.
At the start of the show when we have the national anthem, maybe I should sing it.
We could sing the next sports.
You guys make my ears bleed quite enough. Thanks.
Let's do that.
Thanks very much. OK. We'll be back singing through the papers today. We've got Alex and we have got
Claire Muldoon.
Claire Muldoon, yeah, Alex Armstrong, Claire Muldoon. Up next.
I'm Christopher Hope. From pop stars to politicians, I'll interview anybody in a pub who's got a political opinion. Join me every Friday on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, YouTube or gbnews.com, or wherever you get your podcasts. This is GB News, the People's Channel.
In the GB Newsroom, we bring you the news as it happens.
With our team of dedicated journalists across the UK,
GB News brings you accurate reporting of the day's topical agenda.
When the news breaks, wherever and whenever it's happening,
we'll be there.
This is GB News,
the People's Channel,
Britain's news channel.
Nana Queer, weekends from 3 p.m.
Now, the last time we spoke, we always talk about the topic of gender and your transition. So talk to me about now, though. What you've done is you've created a comic book about your life and about your transition to tell us things that perhaps the press and media don't talk about.
Yes, so throughout the years, I have always been persuaded to write a book, but I was never ready to disclose so much. And I've been working this beautiful comic book. I brought you a little copy. It's here. You can have a look into it later, where I'm detailing past experiences, growing up in Brazil and then moving to this country, and my struggles, the struggles that I had to go through to become the woman that I am today. I'm a woman. I'm not a biological woman, but I am a woman. I just cannot have babies because I don't have the female organs, but I'm a woman inside out, therefore I use the female toilet. But what has been going on around, there are a lot of people, they regard themselves as being transgender when they're actually not. They don't have any psychological help, they don't have any medical help. They just wear female clothes and makeup and they call themselves female. And they're the ones using female spaces and take advantage of that. And that is what should stop and be controlled.
But that's the problem, isn't it? So what do you do to stop that? I mean, the suggestion was a third extra space. How would you feel about a third extra space where, you know, this is where if somebody is trans or any of those other things can use rather than using the female toilet?
I don't think that would work, actually, because these people that those people that regard themselves as being females in their minds, they still would use the female toilets.
GB News, the People's Channel.
We're proud to be GB News, the People's Channel. And as you know, we always love to hear your views. Now, there's a new way of getting in touch with us at gbnews.com/yoursay. By commenting, you can be part of a live conversation and join our GB News community. You can even talk to me, Bev Turner, or any of the members of the GB News family.
Let's talk about stories making the news today, and we do that with Alex Armstrong and Claire Muldoon. And Alex, we're going to start about immigration.
Yes. So the population numbers came out, I think it was yesterday officially, and they show the biggest boom in British population since the baby boom after World War II. So the population is up in a single year, 610,000 people. Just to give the audience some idea on the numbers, it's 462,000 people left. 1,184,000 people came into Britain. Now, this is a combination of things from the birth rate constantly going down every year in Britain, and I do implore people to have more children. We need more babies in Britain. We do.
Well, why haven't you had any then, Alex?
Well, that's a really good point. I need to get busy. Clearly, we'll come on to more stories about that in a minute.
We obviously don't need them if you've got 60-odd million people here.
Well, that's the question, right? But I think if you know, immigration is a constantly spoke about issue in the British
often negatively,
sphere.
with absolute negative connotations.
Correct. But if we want to solve this problem in the long run, if you want less immigration, the answer is have more children.
Is it there? Because there's plenty of people who could be working who are economically inactive here. We just need to get people who are already here working.
Productivity is also another issue we need to fix.
I don't know that we necessarily need to all be having more babies.
Well, I think this is I think the only solution if you want less outside imported people coming into the country, you have to be more productive and have more children. That's the only answer. It really is.
So it's industry that's driving this.
Correct,
industry says we need more people.
Yes, that's right. Yeah, we need to fill. There's a lot of job vacancies still open, and I can't remember the exact figure on that. But again, productivity's down, birth rate is down, immigration is up as a result of that, and that's not going to change.
And meanwhile, Labour tomorrow, when they do their King's Speech, shelving a couple of bills which would put limits on foreign labour coming into the country. So they're going to be welcoming more into the country.
Well, they won't be welcoming anybody when artificial intelligence takes over, when they've got robots doing jobs in the country and whatever. They won't want people, and then it'll all change. It'll be completely different.
Building more houses is not going to be the answer either, because there's 1,300 units going up in West London at the moment with no parking spaces. You know, the infrastructure's not there, the doctors haven't increased, the schools haven't increased. Where are all these people going to live, and what are they going to do when they're there?
Couldn't agree more with you, Claire. And I think this is the one thing that concerns me. Is you know, I'm 33. I look at the waiting list of the NHS, and I think, OK, well, you're going to try and solve it with a bit of social care up front, but that's not going to solve the problem with an increasing population. And we're talking about 4.2 more million people coming here by 2030.
But Alex, responsibility of government is to create those houses, and they're not doing it. There's lots of things that isn't their primary responsibility, and they're spending money on, and they're paying attention to. And year after year, and I've been doing this job for 42 years, 44 years, and I'll tell you what, every year it's been housing problems, housing problems, housing problems, and no one, no matter what the political party is, does anything about it.
Yeah, and there's big pledges from Labour to fix the housing crisis, and I really welcome that. I'm not a natural Labour voter.
They won't be able to.
But I hope they will. I really hope they will, because I'm somebody who should be on the property ladder at my age.
So am I.
Exactly, Claire. And this is a crisis that's only going to get worse. It's going to push people into poverty, push people into homelessness. It's scary.
OK. Let's talk about sex, baby. Let's talk about you and me. This is Dr. Ruth. Dr. Ruth Westheimer, who was an amazing woman, a very controversial, raunchy woman she was always regarded as, and she's died at the age of 96.
Yeah, but she was tiny. She was a pocket rocket. And you interviewed her, didn't you?
Yeah.
And what was she like? She was a Holocaust survivor.
Her accent was very strong, but her inability to be unembarrassed. She was very practical about sexual matters and very direct about them.
She was, and I grew up around about the time of not only Dr. Ruth, but
Germaine Greer.
Germaine Greer and the funny, really funny comedian, Jewish woman, small.
Joan Rivers.
Joan Rivers. Joan Rivers and Dr. Ruth. I'm sorry, I think I learned everything about them. Hence, I've got 4 kids, so there we are. But she's sadly passed away. But she really broke down major barriers of her time, and we don't have anyone like her now.
Well, she came on telly in the 80s and just revolutionised that sort of thing, daytime TV, and she would just talk directly about sex.
Yeah, and she made it an open goal. You mean she discussed it's a very natural thing, it's a very beautiful thing, and you know it works in the right context, of course. And I think a lot of people now are too frightened to actually discuss it because there's.
Go on, finish, sorry.
Because there's just nothing in terms of parameters, or you can't do that, you can't say that. I really feel sorry for couples in pubs if they fancy someone or think, oh, I quite like the look of you, Jip, and they'll go over and they'll have a conversation. Oh, no, you're sexually assaulting me. You're harassing me. Yeah. Get away, out damn spot.
And why she says we should have sex before going out for dinner? Is that right? What's her
what she's saying is that's more important than going out for dinner. That's what she means.
See, I thought it's not like something about Mary where it sort of calms you down before you go out. That's what I assumed. But anyway, we move swiftly on.
Keir Starmer had a personal call with Donald Trump after the assassination attempt. Advisors said he shouldn't phone him, he should just send a note instead. This is front page of the Eye.
Yes, big story, because obviously there's a lot of people saying that Starmer and Trump wouldn't get along, but you know the PM is taking credit for this call. He said, no, I'm not going to send a note, I'm going to speak to him directly, which I personally think is the right thing to do, looking as if Trump will probably be president at the current rate of the polls in America. I think that where this rhetoric between Trump and Keir may change if Trump does become president. He's got very tough stances on what he believes should happen in Ukraine, for example. He wants to end that war, and so does his vice president. And of course, we also have our Foreign Secretary, David Lammy, who is saying he's out making friendly links with Republicans, but has, of course, very publicly slammed Trump multiple times. So it'll be really interesting to see this dynamic between Labour and the Republicans.
I believe David Lammy actually has some contacts already with JD Vance. I don't know the detail of it, but I heard that on the radio this morning, that actually they've got a relationship already.
Right,
so I'll have to look into why.
That may be very well be the case. And of course, it wouldn't be the first time we've had a Republican president and a Labour Prime Minister here, Tony Blair and George Bush. Match made in heaven. So who knows? But I think David Lammy might be a slight hold-up in this, given what he said, but we'll see.
A match made in hell, Claire. China, Russia, Iran, North Korea versus the rest of us.
Yeah, so George Robertson used to be the Shadow Secretary of State for Scotland and then the General Secretary of NATO for a good number of years. So he's been brought in by John Healey, our Defence Secretary of State, with Fiona Hill, who was a British-born Russian affairs expert, and General Sir Richard Barrons. And he's hoping that between the three of them, they'll be able to get a report in place to give us the absolute state of those 4 nations. And it is really scary. And not only that, but within that geographical region, we've got Taiwan. Of course, Nancy Pelosi was sent over by Biden a few years ago, and we are already doing reconnaissance over there. And it is really, really scary. And again, I have to reiterate, defence was not mooted in any of the hustings. We're now saying we've got a defence deficit within our budgets. What is going to happen?
It's quite scary.
Is it too late?
There's a lot of hot points in around the world as well. We're looking at, the Middle East. We're looking at Ukraine. We're looking at Taiwan. I mean, we're pretty stretched as far as the West goes militarily. So I think you're right there, Claire.
And yet we're still I think we're more blind now to foreign affairs and to what's actually happening geopolitically than we have been. Ironically, given the amount of comms we've got coming through from everywhere, it's trusting the source and seeking the truth. And it is more than ever so important important to get that done, but more than ever, it's more difficult to actually get the facts.
Yeah.
It's frightening.
The facts are that arms companies, wherever they are in the world, are making a lot of money out of conflict and mistrust. And we should be asking, when you ask, why in this day and age would anybody want to blow the heck out of their neighbours? Why would they actually physically want to do that?
You know, I just rewatched a show on Netflix about Nuremberg trials, and it really just, like, I think everyone should re-educate themselves on what happened in World War II, because it feels like a long way away for a lot of people, but it was absolutely horrific how many people died. And, you know,
the fact it could happen again.
And the fact it could happen again.
It is happening again.
I've just been watching Oppenheimer as well, which is, of course, about the ultimate weapon and how that changed the world. And, yeah, it is frightening when you think about it all. We have to pause there. Thanks very much, Clem Muldoon, Alex Armstrong. More from both of them just after 8:30. But for now, here's the weather with Alex Burkle. You're going to need a brolly.
That warm feeling inside from Boxed Boilers, sponsors of weather on GB News.
Morning. Here's your latest GB News weather forecast coming to you from the Met Office. After a pretty wet day for many of us yesterday, there will still be a bit of rain and some heavy thundery showers as we go through today. The most persistent rain will be early on, and that is gradually clearing away towards the east as we go through this morning. Elsewhere then, a fair few showers kicking off, particularly across eastern parts of Scotland and northeast England. Here, some of these showers are going to be heavy and thundery with some hail and some lightning mixed in. A scattering of showers elsewhere, driest towards western parts, and temperatures still a little bit below average for the time of year. Highs of around 22 or 23 Celsius at best. Not feeling too bad, especially as the winds in the southeast are going to ease as we go through the day. Taking a closer look at what's going to be happening this evening, and across many parts of Scotland, it's looking mostly fine and dry. A bit of rain perhaps out towards the Outer Hebrides, but some heavy thundery downpours still continuing across eastern parts of Scotland. A scattering of showers perhaps for Northern Ireland, and then a real west-east split in terms of showers when it comes to England and Wales through the end of the day. Eastern parts likely to see some further showers through much of the day. Meanwhile, further west, it's looking a bit drier and brighter as we go through this evening. Overnight, we are going to see many of those showers clearing away, perhaps a few continuing over parts of Scotland and perhaps one or two elsewhere. But on the whole, it's looking largely dry, and with some clear skies developing, I'm expecting temperatures to drop a little bit lower than you might expect. Perhaps away from the towns and cities, we could get into single figures, and there could be the odd pocket of mist and fog around first thing tomorrow morning. Otherwise, Wednesday actually looks like a fairly decent day. Yes, there will be a bit more cloud and some rain pushing into parts of northwest Scotland, and here the winds will strengthen, and otherwise we could see a few showers developing as we go through the day, but for many it is going to stay largely dry. There will be some decent bright and sunny spells around, and with that it's going to feel warmer than it has done of late, with highs in the mid-20s. Bye-bye.
Looks like things are heating up. Boxed Boilers, sponsors of weather on GB News.
The latest GB News travel.
Good morning, I'm Russell Holding. Trains have been stopped northbound from Morpeth to Edinburgh Waverley, where overnight engineering works have overrun. On the A1M in Tyne and Wear, there's a lane closed southbound. Someone's broken down at junction 65 at Berkeley, with delays from junction 66 by the Angel of the North. On the M62 in West Yorkshire, there's a lane closed where someone's broken down on the eastbound exit at junction 31 at Castleford. On the M1 in Leicestershire, there are still long southbound delays after an accident earlier between junctions 22 and 21 from Ashby de la Zouche to Leicester. On the M25 in Hertfordshire, 2 out of 3 lanes are closed clockwise between junctions 24 and 25 from Potters Bar to the A10 after a vehicle caught fire, with queues back beyond junction 23 for the A1. In London, Abington Street's closed off Parliament Square ahead of the state opening of Parliament, and in Somerset the A303 is partly blocked by an accident at Button St Mary, causing queues. That's the latest.
You can stay up to date throughout the day by visiting our website gbnews.com.
It's our summer treat to you. Your chance to win an incredible £30,000 in tax-free cash. Our biggest cash prize of the year so far. With an extra £30,000 in your bank account this year, you could take the ultimate financial holiday and send some of those day-to-day financial stresses packing. £30,000 could get you those nagging home improvements done, buy that brand new car, or just enable you to kick back and relax for the rest of the year. For another chance to win £30,000 £30,000 in tax-free cash, text cash to 63232. Text costs £2 plus one standard network rate message. You can enter online at gbnews.com/win. Entries cost £2. Or post your name and number to GB07 PO Box 8690 Derby DE1 9TT. UK only. Entrance must be 18 or over. Lines close at 5 p.m. on the 30th of August. Please check the closing time if listening or watching on demand. Good luck.
Tune in to Friday Night Live with me, Mark Dolan. GB News royalty with your perfect start to the weekend. Lucky us. Feisty and fearless guests.
Well, I'm a normal person, so ask me.
Honest opinions that raises more questions than a Gary Barlow tax return. And a few surprises along the way. Might be cold in this studio. That is Friday Night Live with me, Mark Dolan. 8 to 9 only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Are the newspapers getting you down?
My wife didn't divorce me that month.
Struggling to separate the wheat from the chaff?
I know that it's a bit of a circus at the best of times.
Well, don't worry. Headliners has got you covered. We'll take the burden of reading the day's news, and if we get depressed, who cares? It's an occupational hazard, frankly. That's Headliners on GB News from 11 p.m. till midnight, and the following morning, 5 till 6 a.m. on GB News, the comedy channel. Nah, just kidding. Britain's news channel.
Hello there, very good morning to you. A tearful Donald Trump arrives at the Republican National Convention in Milwaukee.
As Ohio Senator J.D. Vance is announced as his running mate.
Trump now formally nominated as Republican candidate ahead of an official confirmation later this week.
Donald J. Trump. Donald J. Trump.
Donald J. Trump.
Donald John Trump.
President Biden gives his first interview since the shooting, detailing his call with Donald Trump.
I told him how concerned I was and wanted to make sure I knew how he was actually doing. He sounded good. He said he was fine. And he thanked me for calling him. I told him he was literally in the prayers of Jill and me.
Heartbreak for Jay Slater's family as human remains are found by mountain rescue teams in Tenerife, near his last known location.
Angela Rayner promises a devolution revolution to move power out of Westminster into local communities.
The King and Queen continued their tour of the Channel Islands today after being upstaged by two frisky cows.
Is it safe now? Is it over? Is it over? Will he stay or will he go? Will he, that is. Gareth Southgate has a big decision to make. The FA want him to stay, the players want him to stay, the rest of us are not so sure. The Lionesses, they've got to avoid defeat against Sweden tonight to qualify for next year's Euros. And Carlos Alcaraz was a little late for the Wimbledon Champions Ball on Sunday night, and I'm sure you can work out why.
It may not be as wet as yesterday, but there is the risk of some thundery showers, particularly in the east of Scotland. I'll have more details coming up shortly.
2 minutes past 8 o'clock. I'm Eamonn Holmes.
I'm Isabel Webster, and this is GB News Breakfast.
An emotional Donald Trump arrived at the Republican National Convention in Milwaukee.
It comes after he picked the bookies' favourite, the Ohio Senator J.D. Vance, as his running mate.
Now, it's Donald Trump's first public appearance since the attempted assassination on Saturday.
Well, let's get the thoughts now of the Deputy Editor of The Spectator, Freddie Gray, who often writes on all American matters. Good morning again to you,
Good morning.
Freddie. Look, obviously a traumatic weekend, but actually you could say this has been a good week for President Trump. I mean, first of all, defying death. Now he's seeing this huge boost in the polls. He looks pretty, the support for him really galvanised. And now he's announced this running mate who's extremely loyal to him in J.D. Vance.
Yeah, I've gotten in trouble over the weekend for saying this is obviously a good opportunity for Donald Trump. People say, you can't say that, he's just been shot at and stuff. But, Trump knew the instant he stood up that this was a great political opportunity.
Great political instincts, hasn't he?
And
the fact that he did that.
He knew instantly what to do, and he proved what an effective campaigner he is in that moment. And, you know, you always have to say whatever one thinks of Donald Trump, but I'm going to say it again. Whatever one thinks of Donald Trump, this is an incredible political story. This is someone who 3 days ago was shot at, now appearing at the Republican convention to be nominated to be re-elected back to the White House after all that he's been through in the last 8 years. It's an extraordinary moment in American politics, and I'm not surprised he was moved. Not very often you see Trump get emotional and tearful. I can't think of another instance since 2015.
No, I can't. Well, tell us about J.D. Vance. I mean, the stats are sort of interesting. I can run people through them if you want to sort of go through what the comments that he's made in the past. He's not particularly... Well, he said, I don't really care what happens in Ukraine. He's voted against abortion, as you say, not particularly controversial view in America. He's agreed with Trump's attacks on the legitimacy of the 2020 election. He said that Britain could be the first Islamist nuclear power since Labour came into office a couple of weeks ago. You know... Some interesting comments there, Freddie.
Well, I think the thing to remember there is American politicians never really have a very good grasp of what's going on in British politics. I mean, obviously, you know, Islamist candidates or Muslim candidates are now the threat to Labour, not part of Labour. But he is obviously very outspoken. He has been for some time. But I do think before we all join in the kind of a global pile-on J.D. Vance, we should think about what an extraordinary story he is as well. This is someone who grew up in absolute poverty in Appalachia, who had a drug-addicted mother, who then got into Harvard, who then served in the Marines, who then launched a successful financial tech business. He is, and then became Senator of Ohio. He's a pretty amazing American story, and he's a pretty interesting guy. So, you know, people are complicated, candidates are complicated. I think trying to portray him as sort of, you know, Donald Trump with brains, but Hitler with brains, which is basically what most people are trying to do, is facile. And
yeah, but, you know, even he made the Hitler comparison, as you say.
He called Donald Trump Hitler, yes.
Yeah, and he said that anyone who voted for him in 2016 was an idiot. He's rescinded the comments and apologised for them several years later. But, you know, perhaps it shows not the best judgment on occasion.
He's quite funny about it. He says, you know, Trump has a memory like a steel trap, and I wish he didn't, because I wish he'd forget those comments I made about him back in 2016. But the point is, back in 2015-16, a lot of people who now think Trump is actually all right thought he was a horror. And I think one of the more interesting things that happened this weekend is you're getting people like Elon Musk coming out saying, I endorse Donald Trump fully, openly on the internet. You're getting a lot of other people who previously were horrified or too nervous to publicly express enthusiasm for Donald Trump saying, actually, I support him now. Which is it's a turning point in American politics. And I think, you know, sort of just doing the usual kind of isn't Trump awful reaction is not going to help you understand what's happening.
Yeah, it's a very interesting time in American politics.
Freddie Gray from The Spectator. Thanks very much indeed, Freddie. Let's now say hello, good morning, to the Shadow Minister for Veterans Affairs, Andrew Bowie. A very good morning to you, Andrew.
Morning, Eamonn.
Yeah, today it's a branch and route review of our defence forces. What are you going to be looking at?
Well, this is the third review that we will have had of defence and security since 2021. We conducted a review that concluded just a couple of years ago, and the conclusion of that led us to commit to giving 2.5% of GDP spending on defence by 2030. That was a commitment that Britain should have been able to go to NATO summit last week and demonstrate our leadership in this regard. Unfortunately, the Labour Party, the new Labour government, have been unable to match that commitment, and this new review, which we don't think is necessary, will now take place and will not report back until 2025, by which stage we still do not know whether or not Labour will commit to more defence spending. We all agree there needs to be more money on defence. Why Labour can't commit to that is, you know, is for them to answer, but really what we should have been able to do was lead the world last week at NATO. Say we're spending 2.5% in defence. Had a Conservative government being re-elected, that's what we would have been doing. And so we really do reiterate our calls for the Labour government to step up, show leadership and commit to spending more on defence, as we were going to do had we been successful in the election.
So if the review came back and said, look, we need a 5% increase overall in budget, it wouldn't be that you would necessarily be against that?
No, I mean, look, we will obviously let the review take its course. There are some eminent individuals been appointed to conduct the review, and we wish them well. The point is that had we been elected last week, we would have been spending more on defence right now, and we would have been leading the world at NATO last week, showing our determination to take on Vladimir Putin with his actions in Ukraine, and indeed all the other threats that the Western world faces right now. The fact that the Labour Party haven't been able to do that, I do think, is a signal of things to come. So whilst we will wait with interest the results of the defence review, what we need to do is get on and start spending the money that our armed forces so desperately need right now.
There will be cynics listening to this, though, Andrew Bowie, who will be aware that the Conservatives' position when actually in government was exactly the same as Starmer's is now that he's in government, 2.5% when those economic conditions allow. You only increased it and guaranteed it once you were running for this general election, which all of the polls showed you were going to lose. So there was no risk that you'd actually have to pay for it. If you really, truly, as a party, believed in it, why didn't you impose it sooner?
No, we announced our commitment to 2.5% by 2030, well in advance of the general election being called. I remember doing a media round just like this on the announcement.
Actually, if you forgive me, by 2030, which is sometime after this review is likely to have concluded.
Yes, but there would have been incremental increases from this point forward. It's really important that the money gets to where it's needed, and that's what we would have done had we been re-elected. To say when economic conditions allow, I mean, that's giving us there's no end point to that statement. That could be 10, 15, 20 years, and the armed forces need certainty. The military needs to know whether or not they're going to get the money that they need to spend on the equipment and the personnel that they require to keep this country and our allies safe moving forward in what's a very tumultuous, increasingly dangerous world.
Personnel is going to be a big problem for you overall, and your Veterans Affairs Minister, you'll know this. It's not an attractive, or it's a less attractive career option for youngsters today. How do you change that, Andrew?
Yeah, that's the big question. It's something that we grappled with whilst we were in office. Getting more young people to think about the armed forces as a career. I did. I left school and joined the Royal Navy, and I served for a few years in the senior service, had an absolutely fantastic time, and it's a very fulfilling, very rewarding career for anybody that wants to take that up. But we do have to ask the question as to why there are fewer people choosing to leave education, be that school, college, university, and take up a career in our armed forces. And maybe that's one thing that this review will actually look at, and of course we will obviously respect the findings of that and do what we can to support the government in encouraging more people to join up, because it's very important and, you know, can give a very rewarding career to anybody that chooses.
I want to ask you about the comments by George Robertson. He's the former NATO Secretary-General and himself a former Defence Secretary, saying that we need to have a revamp in this country and of our Western allies in the face of the deadly quartet, as he puts it. And he's referring to North Korea, China, Russia and Tehran. In the context of all of that, overnight, we've seen J.D. Vance being announced as Donald Trump's running mate. And he himself has said that he doesn't really care what happens in Ukraine. What do you make of those comments in the light of this threat that's being highlighted by the former Secretary-General?
Well, look, I obviously agree with Lord Robertson. We do face increasing threats across the world, and he talks about the deadly quartet. He is not wrong in his analysis. However, we'll work with whoever wins the US election in November, and we've got to look at the leading role that the United States has played over the decades in keeping Europe safe. You know, a leading member of NATO, a leading member when it comes to UN Security Council, taking decisions that impact on the lives of so many people across the world, defending democracy and standing up for freedom. America has always done that, and I fully expect America to continue to take that leading role with our full support, whoever is successful in the American election come November.
Speaking of November, suggestions that Rishi Sunak ought to stay in place as this caretaker leader until then. And then there is likely to be this Conservative Party leadership contest. Now, Ben Houchen, as you know, the only mayor who, I suppose you could say, the most powerful Conservative in the party, has said it's incredibly important that there isn't a fractious contest, or you could see the party in a long period of wilderness. Do you agree with those comments? And do you think that there are any particular names in the hat who've thrown their hat in the ring who could be problematic for that?
Look, well, you're not going to draw me on any particular candidate just yet. But what I would agree with Ben Houchen's summation that we don't want a fractured contest. In saying that, we do need to have a full, frank and open debate about what the Conservative Party stands for, what we will offer the country in the next half of this decade, and that's what I fully expect our leadership election to be about. The timeline for all that and how it will work is for the party board and the 1922 committee to work out, and meetings are ongoing almost as we speak to determine just those very things. But in terms of the debate that we're going to have, as I just said to another broadcaster, we need to return to the point where we are able to disagree agreeably and have civil debate, but yes, up front, an open debate about where we are going as a party moving forward, and then what we can offer the country. When the question is put to the people of Britain in 4 or 5 years' time, who do you want to be your government? I want the answer to be the Conservative Party. So we've got to get it right. We've got to get the person in that can lead us into the next election. But Ben Houchen's absolutely right. It can't be a fractured contest.
Okay.
Or we are destined for years in the wilderness.
Andrew, we've got to leave it there. Thank you very much indeed. Andrew is the Shadow Minister for Veterans Affairs. Thank you very much indeed. Let's go to Tenerife now. Live, we've got Chris Elkington. Chris is the editor of Canadian Weekly. And this comes, Chris, after a body, and everybody seems to be quite sure the body found is that of Jay Slater.
Everything does point towards that, yes. The body was found with Jay's possessions and clothes. But until we get the official word from the results of the autopsy, which we expect to be later today, then obviously it's still speculation. But everything does point towards that, yes.
But it's hardly going to surprise you if it is Jay Slater, is it?
No, the main thing is that the Guardia Civil, if they were sure it wasn't the person they were looking for, would have announced that yesterday.
Yeah.
And obviously they didn't. So, yes, it will not be any surprise at all.
It's just very ironic, you know, that he's found so close to his last scanned point that his phone gave off a signal from, and it's so close there after all of this searching for a month.
Well, yes and no. The search initially, the first 2 weeks of the search that was well followed by everyone before they announced it was finishing, which it didn't. It continued under a Secrecy Act, was at road level. So they meticulously covered every area along the trails and routes of the Masker Walks and the Tenno Rural Park. The search then went down into the valleys, into the ravines, up to 600 metres deep. So although the phone has pinged a location, it doesn't give you the altitude. It doesn't tell you that it's 600 metres below where you're looking for. So the fact that the body's been found 4 weeks or nearly a month after it went missing in deep undergrowth in one of the deep ravines isn't really a surprise.
What are the questions that would surprise you and the answers that would surprise you? What are the questions that still need to be asked after all this time?
Well, the obvious one is why did he go to the massacre in the first place? And also what made his decision to leave so quickly and choose to try and walk home from an area that is it's just somewhere you don't walk back from. It's, an area that's 30 kilometres up the coast on windy roads from the main tourist areas he was staying in of Los Cristianos. Those really are the main two questions.
The fact that, experts suspect that he'd suffered an accident or fall doesn't necessarily rule out foul play, does it? I mean, obviously, we don't want to get into conspiracy theories because they have been so problematic in this case. But just, stating it objectively, there could be a fall that could involve a third party, for example.
Yes, I mean, the police haven't ruled out any hypothesis from the start, but it does point towards an accidental fall or from dehydration, a slip, a trip or something. But yes, absolutely, until we get the full autopsy report, which that won't be today, the identification should be, we really won't know, but it is possible, yes.
OK. Chris, appreciate your time. Thank you very much indeed. And we'll talk to you again soon as this story develops. Chris Elkington is the editor of the Canadian Weekly. Sorry, my eyesight can't see that. Thank you very much indeed, Chris. Thank you.
Thank you.
We're going to give you the weather update. Let's go to Alex Burkill. He's got the details.
A brighter outlook with Box Solar, sponsors of weather on GB News.
Morning. Here's your latest GB News weather forecast coming to you from the Met Office. After a pretty wet day for many of us yesterday, there will still be a bit of rain and some heavy thundery showers as we go through today. The most persistent rain will be early on, and that is gradually clearing away towards the east as we go through this morning. Elsewhere then, a fair few showers kicking off, particularly across eastern parts of Scotland and northeast England. Here, some of these showers are going to be heavy and thundery with some hail and some lightning mixed in. A scattering of showers elsewhere, driest towards western parts, and temperatures still a little bit below average for the time of year. Highs of around 22 or 23 Celsius at best. Not feeling too bad, especially as the winds in the southeast are going to ease as we go through the day. Taking a closer look at what's going to be happening this evening, and across many parts of Scotland, it's looking mostly fine and dry. A bit of rain perhaps out towards the Outer Hebrides, but some heavy thundery downpours still continuing across eastern parts of Scotland. A scattering of showers perhaps for Northern Ireland, and then a real west-east split in terms of showers when it comes to England and Wales through the end of the day. Eastern parts likely to see some further showers through much of the day. Meanwhile, further west, it's looking a bit drier and brighter as we go through this evening. Overnight, we are going to see many of those showers clearing away, perhaps a few continuing over parts of Scotland and perhaps one or two elsewhere. But on the whole, it's looking largely dry, and with some clear skies developing, I'm expecting temperatures to drop a little bit lower than you might expect. Perhaps away from the towns and cities, we could get into single figures, and there could be the odd pocket of mist and fog around first thing tomorrow morning. Otherwise, Wednesday actually looks like a fairly decent day. Yes, there will be a bit more cloud and some rain pushing into parts of northwest Scotland, and here the winds will strengthen, and otherwise we could see a few showers developing as we go through the day, but for many it is going to stay largely dry. There will be some decent bright and sunny spells around, and with that it's going to feel warmer than it has done of late, with highs in the mid-20s. Bye-bye.
That warm feeling inside. From Boxed Boilers, sponsors of weather on GB News.
Now, there's still plenty of time to grab your chance to win £30,000 of tax-free cash in the Great British Giveaway.
Yeah, it's our biggest cash prize of the year. What would you do if you won it? Have a think about that as we tell you how you could win.
It's our summer treat to you. Your chance to win an incredible £30,000 in tax-free cash. Our biggest cash prize of the year so far. With an extra £30,000 in your bank account this year, you could take the ultimate financial holiday and send some of those day-to-day financial stresses packing. £30,000 could get you those nagging home improvements done, buy that brand new car, or just enable you to kick back and relax for the rest of the year. For another chance to win £30,000 in tax-free cash, text cash to 63232. Text costs £2 plus one standard network rate message. You can enter online at gbnews.com/win. Entries cost £2, or post your name and number to GB07 PO Box 8690 Derby DE1 9TT. UK only. Entrance must be 18 or over. Lines close at 5 p.m. on the 30th of August. Please check the closing time if listening or watching on demand. Good luck.
Good luck indeed, whatever you're doing. We've got Paul Coit with the sport coming up, and lots more besides. Keep it here. This is Breakfast on GB News. Eamonn and Isabel.
Britain's newsroom. Weekday mornings from 9:30.
Well, we've got quite an extraordinary story to talk to you about now, because a triple amputee war hero is launching a bid to become the first to sail across the Pacific Ocean non-stop, solo and unsupported.
Craig Wood was blown up as a teenager by the Taliban in Afghanistan, but now he's hoping to change the perception of disabled people and raise money for other limbless veterans like himself. And Craig joins us now. Morning.
So, Craig, you are extraordinary. You are planning to take up to 80 days to sail from La Paz in Mexico to Japan.
Yeah.
How many miles is that?
It'll be over 6,000.
Amazing.
Amazing. And it will take you how long?
The minimum it's going to take me is 60 days. It could be up to 80. Yeah.
And that's on your own. You've done plenty of this before, haven't you? You've done lots of solo sailing.
Yeah, I've done quite a bit of solo sailing, but not as big as this. It is the world's biggest ocean, after all.
And why that particular route?
I wanted it to be a challenge, not just for me, but for anyone.
Right.
So any able-bodied person can look at this and go, wow, that is difficult.
Yeah.
And so that was the main drive. Then it's become a bigger thing than that now. Now I'm raising money for charity, and I can truly inspire people to change their perception on what is possible for disabled people.
And if you don't mind, can we ask you what happened in 2009 in Afghanistan? What were the circumstances of your injury?
I was on a normal routine foot patrol. About 5 metres in front of me, a commando IED was triggered, and subsequently I became a triple amputee. Both legs above the knee, left hand at the wrist, facial injuries, etc., etc.
The People's Channel.
If you want your news to be straight talking...
This is a nightmare for the Conservatives again.
Down to earth.
It's not just Nottingham where this is happening, is it?
And most importantly, honest.
Hard-working, middle-class taxpayers, they'll get their book thrown at them.
Then catch me, Martin Daubney, Monday to Friday, 3 till 6 p.m. on GB News, Britain's news channel.
Join me, Nana Akwe, for an informative, interactive news programme with a difference. It's fun.
It's true. You're not wrong. No one will be cancelled.
Lovely. Join me from 3 p.m. every weekend, only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
Join me, Neil Oliver, every Sunday night at 6 p.m. on GB News. And if an hour is not nearly enough for you, go to gbnews.com for special extended episodes online every Friday at 9 p.m, where we can truly get into the nitty-gritty of what's going on. GB News, Britain's news channel.
OK, we've a lot of football to talk about, not the way we wanted to talk about it, but the players are back, Paul, their heads are hanging, and there's talk about who the new England coach would be. It may even be Gareth Southgate.
It might well be.
Yeah.
Well, will he stay or will he go? We had this situation with the World Cup, and then he took some time out and then decided that he was going to stay. I honestly do not think that Gareth Southgate will stick around. I think he's been to a final, been to another final, 2 in the Euros, hasn't actually made it through. I think it's time for a change. I think it's he's been amazed. There's been no question he's been brilliant for English football.
Yeah.
The way he's brought the press in close to the team, the way he's looked after, his man management skills have been excellent. But I think it's time that the coaching is changed and then we go with something different. And I think most people feel the same way. Although the FA, I think they want him to stay because he's a great FA man. I mean, he's a great person to represent the football.
He's not a Brian Clough, is he?
He's no Brian Clough. He certainly is no Brian Clough. So the thing is, there aren't not many Brian Cloughs around these days. I can't think of any managers like that would be like, oh, he's going to be trouble. Because that's the way that sport and life seems to be these days. There's no rogues anymore, are there? There's no...
That's true.
So I don't think so. Not in football that I can think of that a manager...
Which then might make people like Eddie Howe a natural successor.
I think so, but I don't know if I was Eddie Howe, I would want to leave Newcastle. I mean, money is one thing. They're all very, very rich. He's not going to earn as much money at Newcastle. Whether that drives managers... At that point, I don't know. I think probably you've got someone like Graham Potter, who was at Brighton, has turned out a job at Ajax recently. I just wonder whether there's more to it, maybe, because nobody ever leaves it without actually speaking to managers, do they? I mean, surely. The FA, even if they want Gareth Southgate to stay, they must think, well, there's a chance he's not, so maybe we should spread the net out and have a word with a few. So we'll see. So he's not in work at the moment. I think, if anybody, that's going to be the man, in my opinion.
The Lionesses tonight, it's a must-win situation.
It is a must-win, and Serena Wiegmann was talking about Gareth Southgate and saying, yeah, it just takes about 3 days to get over it, but I don't think you need to tell him because he knows what it's like going away from a tournament and not winning. They're struggling to qualify for the Euros. They're obviously the champions. They play Sweden tonight. They must avoid defeat to qualify. So... if they lose...
I just find it strange that they have to qualify as champions anyway.
So do I. If you're champions, you should go straight into the finals next time. But obviously it doesn't work that way anymore. So if they don't win, then they will have to qualify, and it's in Switzerland next summer.
The match on Sunday, Spain against England, Carlos Alcaraz, he'd gone out there on centre court and he lifted the men's singles title. And the match kept him back from?
Well, obviously the Euros final. So he's a huge football fan as well. He knows a lot of the players. Apparently he was texting them afterwards, wishing them good luck. So then he's got the Wimbledon ball, the Champions Ball, where they go out and then he'll have to dance with Krejcikova, which is, you know... Look,
so
this is it,
I
this is
know,
it here. Look
but
at
it's
this.
tradition.
I can't believe they still do this. There we are. I don't know what they were dancing to there. What lovely movers they are. Who's clapping in the background? I never see who
That's
that is.
Annabel Croft, isn't it?
Is it? Is it
yes,
Annabel Croft?
yeah, she was doing the interviewing and
Well, she
everything.
looks as if she's singing, however it
She's
is.
danced before, hasn't she? She's done it with Strictly,
Yeah.
but there we are. So what he had to do was, he was a little bit late, so he was watching the game on his phone. Then he got, this is at Wimbledon, then he gets back to the hotel, watching a bit more, saw the goal, saw the winning goal, and then went to think it was offside, and then he went to leave, and then off he went.
Quick birthdays before we go.
Yeah, go on then. Well, I've got 3 for you.
Yeah.
We haven't played for a while. First one, who's it possibly going to be? I think we're going back a few years with this first one.
Ooh.
And talking of Wimbledon as well, there's the clue. And it's not that person I was thinking of. Not Wimbledon champion, Andros Townsend.
Andros Townsend would be about 38.
38 for Andros Townsend. What do you reckon?
Is that a current photo?
It is a current photo.
OK, I'll go 37.
33.
Oh.
It's just 33.
Okay, been around for a while.
He has been around for a while. OK, he's done a juice round or two. What about this one then? So I did mention Wimbledon. Now, who is that? The champion of Wimbledon, 1963, 1965 and 1970, has won more titles than anybody else.
Is that a man? Sorry, I can't see.
It's not. It's Margaret Court. Margaret Court there, and that's who Novak Djokovic is trying to emulate with as many Grand Slam titles. There's 24 titles that she won. How old then is Margaret Court today?
Margaret Court must
she
be...
won last one Wimbledon in 70, first one in 63.
I'd say she's 80.
80 for Margaret Court. Izzy?
Oh, 82.
Is the right answer.
Oh, no way.
82
there
is the right answer. Time to redeem yourself. We've got one more. One of the greatest footballers I've seen play.
Gareth Bale.
How old is Gareth?
Gareth Bale's mid-30s. 35.
Is he?
36.
It's a 1-1 draw, 35.
There we go. Thanks, Quitty.
Happy birthday, Gareth.
Thank you, my friend. OK, thank you very much.
To politics now, and the Deputy Prime Minister, Angela Rayner, has promised a devolution revolution as Labour have pledged to move power away from Westminster into the hands of local communities. Let's hear from the Exchequer Secretary to the Treasury, James Murray, as to why. Do you think that devolution so far has been enough of a success to increase it?
Well, yes, so as you set out, we want to increase the level of devolution across England because we feel that's really important to driving economic growth in every part of the country. So what the Deputy Prime Minister is going to be doing today is writing out to those council leaders in areas which are not currently covered by a devolution deal, inviting them to come back to her by September with what powers and responsibilities they would like to see devolved to them to help them drive economic growth. Because we know that putting those powers in the hands of local leaders is in a really important way of driving that economic growth. And if we can get economic growth up across the country, which is one of our central missions as a government, that's the way to make people better off.
James, how does it relate to wealth? How does giving power to a local area necessarily boost the chances of an increased productivity?
Yeah, well, there's a lot of international evidence to show that when you have a devolution of powers, it increases productivity in local areas. And in fact, we've seen that in the UK. So, for instance, in West Yorkshire, there's been a real focus there on getting investment in digital industry, which has made the area the fastest growing source of the digital industry outside of London. So actually having local leaders who know their local areas better than people in Whitehall, who understand what the needs of the people living in their area are, can then make sure they're targeting the use of resources most effectively, whether that comes to skills investment, transport, planning or so on, all the things that are important interventions that government can make. If they're made by people who have skin in the game, who are on the front line, that really helps to boost economic growth.
This is very much going to be Angela Rayner's baby as Deputy Prime Minister. I just want to ask you about the reports that there are tensions bubbling under the surface with her. When she was in opposition, very much her New Deal for working people was her. She had the lead on that. That's been taken away from her, given to Jonathan Reynolds, I think. Her planning brief, it's thought, may well be taken away from her since Rachel Reeves made her maiden speech as Chancellor. So, is there a problem there between Sir Keir Starmer and Angela Rayner, who aren't necessarily natural bedfellows but have to work so closely together?
No, I think what you're seeing is a team at the top around Keir Starmer who's absolutely united in getting on with delivering the change that we promised in the election. We have been really hungry to get on with this change, to make these changes as quickly as we can. And you spoke about planning, for instance. That was a speech where the Chancellor was there, with the Deputy Prime Minister and other Secretaries of State, all having a united front saying, look, we are going to get things moving, we are going to make change. And I think it's a real show of strength that different Secretaries of State are working together across these important issues, making sure that we deliver that change by having them work together.
James, where are the areas up for grabs?
In the devolution deal, you mean?
Yeah, I mean, if you're going out there and you're saying we want to devolve power around the whole country, what areas are you talking about?
Yeah, so what we want this process to be is very much led from the local areas up, rather than Whitehall just saying here's what you can have and leave it at that. This has to be led by local council leaders. So the letter from the Deputy Prime Minister will be going to county council and unitary council leaders, as I said, in areas where there isn't devolution at the moment, and asking them to work together, sometimes across boundaries, to come back to her by September with proposals for what powers they think they would like. It has to be led by the local authority leaders themselves. Now, I can give examples just to put a bit more explanation into this for yourself and your viewers. It might be powers over transport, it might be over skills, it might be over planning, but it's definitely not for me to stand here on TV and say to local leaders what they should request. It's up to them to work together across borders between different local authority areas, and then come back to the Deputy Prime Minister with proposals.
Tomorrow we'll be seeing the King's speech, 35 pieces of legislation being introduced, read out by His Majesty, and some of that will be in relation to, actually shelving some legislation that the Conservatives had to try and crack down on more foreign workers coming into the country. And just wonder why, given the figures that were released yesterday, which seem that actually immigration has fuelled the population rise to the highest levels in 75 years, risen by 610,000 to 60.9 million, that you're deciding to shelve this?
Well, look, I'm not going to preempt what's going to be in the King's speech. You have to wait to hear that when the King makes his speech tomorrow. But what's very clear for us as a government is that we believe net migration is too high. We want to see that come down. And that's why we've set out, got to work already on making that happen. One of the crucial things that we want to be doing is making sure that the immigration system is working much more closely with the skills system in this country. Because at the moment, if you have skills shortages in individual sectors, we tend to rely on labour from overseas to fill those gaps. That should send a message to the skills system in this country that we need to invest in skills in that sector to make sure people in the UK have skills to do those jobs. That's a reform that we want to make and that we've got to work with straight away.
James Murray, we'll leave it there. Thank you very much indeed. Appreciate it. The time, 8:36. Claire Muldoon, Alex Armstrong. They're back with the papers, the stories making the news right after this.
The latest GB News travel.
Good morning, I'm Russell Holding. In Perth and Kinross, the A9 is partly blocked northbound where a lorry's broken down at the Inveralmond roundabout in Perth, causing queues. In Pembrokeshire on the A477, roadworks at the Fingerpost junction at Upper Nash, causing westbound queues towards Pembroke Dock. On the M25 in Hertfordshire, the clockwise exit slip roads closed at junction 24 at Potters Bar after an accident causing queues. In London, Abingdon Street is closed off Parliament Square ahead of the state opening of Parliament. In Surrey, the A24 remains closed northbound in sections from the Bear Green roundabout to Leatherhead after a diesel spill last week. In Somerset, the A303 is partly blocked by an accident at Buckland St Mary, causing queues, and train services in Cornwall are suspended between Lismore Scard and Lou after a train broke down. And that's the latest.
You can stay up to date throughout the day by visiting our website, gbnews.com.
Mark Dolan tonight is your weekend dose of news, debate and entertainment.
This sounds like a wild conspiracy theory.
Don't miss My Big Opinion, Mark Meets, and My Take at 10.
Democracy is a funny old thing.
And we don't do boring, not on my watch. I just won't have it.
Go and get another glass of that bubbly, you've earned it.
That's Mark Dolan tonight, Saturday and Sunday, 9 to 11, only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Join me, Neil Oliver, every Sunday night at 6 p.m. on GB News. And if an hour is not nearly enough for you, go to gbnews.com for special extended episodes online every Friday at 9 p.m, where we can truly get into the nitty-gritty of what's going on. GB News, Britain's news channel.
In the GB newsroom, we bring you the news as it happens.
With our team of dedicated journalists across the UK, GB News brings you accurate reporting of the day's topical agenda.
When the news breaks, wherever and whenever it's happening,
we'll be there.
This is GB News,
the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
We're proud to be GB News, the People's Channel. And as you know, we always love to hear your views. Now, there's a new way of getting in touch with us at gbnews.com/yoursay. By commenting, you can be part of a live conversation and join our GB News community. You can even talk to me, Bev Turner, or any of the members of the GB News family.
I'm Patrick Christie's. Every weeknight from 9, I bring you 2 hours of unmissable, explosive debate and headline-grabbing interviews. What impact has that had?
We got death threats and the bomb threat and so on.
As time passes,
she could have said stump.
You made my argument for me.
My guest and I tackle the issues that really matter with a sharp take on every story.
Went everywhere.
Something practical could be done.
Or I can become something different. Patrick Christie's tonight from 9 p.m. only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
Alex and Claire are back with stories making the news in the papers, and one is about youngsters nowadays being given etiquette lessons. Claire, why would that be? Are youngsters today, are they more rude? Are they gormless? How would you describe them?
All of the above.
Yeah?
All of the above. They're not parented correctly for a start. They've lost the ability to communicate. You can't have a decent chat with them. They don't know what's going on in the world. You mention weather. Oh, what's that? You mention how does that make you feel? Well, it makes me feel anxious because it's given me PTSD. What did we call that earlier? Is it weather zealots or something? So, come on. Bring back manners. Some of them don't even know how to use cutlery. They're using it like pitchforks.
But is that really their fault, or is that the previous generation's fault who have told them to worry about the weather and not to worry about using forks because they're not being taught this at home?
Well, exactly. That's my very point. It's parental responsibility to teach your children how to move. And do you know what? People might sit and say, oh, to use a napkin, to use a knife and fork, to sit at a table, to have, to speak properly. Oh, that's putting on airs and graces. No, it's not. It's actually giving your children freedom. The freedom to be able to sit in any social setting and know how to behave. It's so important. And I'll tell you, see, when I'm on this rant, when I would far rather taking a tube, the sign said, instead of, hold on to the handrail, make sure you take water. I'd far rather the sign said, if you're sitting on a seat with a child, remove the child from the seat, put the child on your lap and offer that seat to someone else. And while I'm at it, any young lad that's sitting there, and there's loads of them that just sit there all the time and do not get up and do not offer your seat for anyone, I think is an appalling mark of society.
You see, I find it amazing that we're talking about this, things that would be natural to my generation and your generation because it was part of the social etiquette you would have been taught at school and in your family and in your church or whatever. It now seems to be absent.
Completely absent. And all it does is make me angry. So stop making me angry, Alex. You put the message out there and you get, if you're sitting on a seat, you get off that seat, mate.
Well, I have to say, I think I'm pretty good at this. I always think of my grandma when I'm sat on the tube.
You'll be thinking about me next.
I think of, well, not you, you're fine to stand, you are. But I always think of her because I would think, she's in her 80s and she can't walk very far. And I think, you don't really know when someone just walks onto a tube how far they can stand or how long they can walk. So I always get up. But I just think it's etiquette to do that anyway.
Of course it is. It's chivalry.
Yeah,
it's not sexist. It's not misogynistic.
But some people think it's only those disabled seats they should get up from. But I think there's more of an etiquette in just getting up off a seat, even
but there are very rude people. There's no point trying to pretend everybody's loving, everybody's nice.
True.
There are horrible pigs
Lots
out
of
there.
bad
there are.
There was this horrible old cow last week. I was getting into my car and my driver was opening the door to assist me in, and I couldn't move, and we'd left my walker beside the car, and this old cow came along and she threw it, lifted it and threw it to the side. That's blocking the pavement. I swear to God, if she'd have been a man, I'd have thumped her.
That is ridiculous. I mean, you just don't get that. I mean, that for me is just people who are out looking for a fight. It's the same sort of people who are riding bicycles who are on the pavement and telling you to get out of the way. I'm like, no, I'm a pedestrian here. The ones that really annoy me are the people with their shopping bags on the tube that are packed at 5 o'clock in the afternoon. Like, get your bags off of your seat. It's not reserved for them.
The other day I was on a train and my phone was out of battery and I wanted to charge it, and there's a little plug next to the woman next to me, and I said, do you mind if I just reach across and plug it in?
Yes.
She wouldn't let me.
She said yes.
So my phone was about to die, and I had to go.
What do you think her objection was? That the phone was going to blow up?
She was very overweight, so I think she was just the
she was
access
fat,
was difficult. Yeah,
she was
very fat and yes, very rude.
Good.
So anyway, as soon as I could, I moved.
Let's talk about travelling now. This is Lloyd's Bank, right? And they're cutting back on costs, and all companies do this. Yeah. It's an excuse for not having to pay for business class flights. There's no point trying to pretend it's for the environment or anything else. But
because the flight is still flying.
Well, this is it, right? And this,
Claire, do you know, I'm thinking of you as I'm talking about this. To fly to Scotland, to fly to Northern Ireland is horrendous. I went to get a flight to Belfast last week, and it was £430 single.
No way.
Single, yeah. So they can charge what they want because there's no competition. It's the same going to Glasgow. Glasgow, absolutely horrendous.
That is absolutely ridiculous. And I really do hate this because the real takeaway from this story is that they're using carbon footprint as a reason as an excuse. And we know banks are traditionally pretty bad with their carbon footprint because they just move it around the world somewhere where it doesn't seem to be a political issue. And they obviously, they're saying now you can't get a business flight or you're now not even allowed to take a flight for an international journey that's more than 6 hours. How are they expecting their staff to travel to Europe by trains?
Look, you're not going to get anybody who doesn't have a job like this will have no sympathy for you.
Yeah, true.
Business class is not very good anyway, and economy is rubbish, absolute rubbish everywhere and overpriced. Yeah. And I cannot for the life of me work out how me not going in business class is helping the environment.
Exactly, because
how does that help the environment?
The plane has to go anyway.
Anyway, so what it's
ludicrous. It's virtue
signaling. They'll get rid of business because nobody's paying for it.
Yeah,
they'll get rid
like
of business.
Taxis to work as a freelancer. Are they going to start cutting that? What are you supposed to do? Come on.
Newspapers for the newspapers reviewers can't have that either.
We can't have two sets.
Right, we're going to take a quick break and we're going to be back right after this.
Are the newspapers getting you down?
My wife didn't divorce me that month.
Struggling to separate the wheat from the chaff?
I know that it's a bit of a circus at the best of times.
Well, don't worry. Headliners has got you covered. We'll take the burden of reading the day's news, and if we get depressed, who cares? It's an occupational hazard, frankly. That's Headliners on GB News from 11 p.m. till midnight, and the following morning, 5 till 6 a.m. on GB News, the comedy channel. Nah, just kidding. Britain's news channel.
Martin Daubney, weekdays from 3 p.m.
King Charles has launched his own aftershave, costing, wait for it, an eye-watering 135 quid for a 100 millilitre bottle, promising buyers that they can smell just like the gardens of his Highgrove country pile. Now, this is something that Meghan Markle would do, surely not the King. Is this a case of King Charles selling out, watering down the brand, just like Meghan? Well, join me now to discuss this is the royal broadcaster, Helena Chard. Helena, welcome to the show.
Martin,
often on the show, we've had a pop at Meghan Markle, the Sussexes, for selling out, for flogging strawberry jam, and now the King is flogging Pong. Is this really the right royal thing to do?
Do you know what? So the joy of luxury Highgrove splash, at the end of the day, Highgrove is such a special place, and the Highgrove shop sells amazing things on there. And as we know, the profit actually goes towards charity. So it's the King's Foundation, which was formed in 1986. Profits go towards educational and training, and it's all to do with this sort of sustainable world. But not to forget as well the charitable aspect and the whole ethos of the King's Foundation, and that's so important. This is not just something that's going up on the website and just being sold purely to go into someone's pocket. So I think, all in all, I think everyone should have a look at the Highgrove website and see what's on for sale. I mean, there are lots of really lovely, I think pretty fairly priced products, and even more so, go and see the gardens. As we know, King Charles is a keen environmentalist, and the gardens are fabulous.
GB News, the People's Channel.
Good afternoon, Britain.
Your lunchtime update on the stories that matter across the UK.
From breaking news and insightful analysis, inspiring stories and lively debates. You're comparing yourself to a former Prime Minister.
Which is it? Stay informed, stay updated, stay entertained.
I just don't know how anyone would not want to be there.
Every weekday from midday.
We are Good Afternoon Britain, only on GB News.
Britain's news channel.
Hooray!
We're going to talk now about the highest rates of violence of any prison in the country, in the whole country. And that would be where, Claire?
Feltham in West London. Feltham's Young Institute for Offenders is shocking, the report that's just come out. This is an institution that houses aged 15 to 18-year-old men, young lads, boys, who have not finished their schooling, who have not been able to stay in mainstream education, who have been taken out from their family environment and put into this Young Offenders Institute in West London. The stats are staggering. In early 2023, there was 200 lads that were kept apart, and that was a safe way to do it and manage it. By September of that year, that figure was up to 500. These boys, these young boys, have been told now you can't walk around in socks and shoes for fear of what's embedded in the socks. They can't get on with one another. They're supposed to receive their education from the local authority whilst in this institution, and they can't do that either because they can't be in a classroom environment to keep still and learn. They're not doing it.
When you say fear of what's embedded in the socks, what do you mean?
Razors, knives, whatever, and how they're getting these things in is an anathema as well. But this is really shocking, and thank goodness one of Keir Starmer's only positive thing, I think, to come out, apart from West Streeting, is the appointment of James Timpson for the prisons. And I hope he manages to look at this, because there's such a dereliction of duty. There is so many young, disenfranchised young people. And I
go out of my way to
boys.
give Timpson's business the shops because of what they do, and having met the family and the man himself, absolutely incredible that they understand rehabilitation, they understand bringing people back into the community, giving them jobs, making them feel worthwhile.
But we need to investigate and dig deeper as to why the violence
That's
is
all I'm
actually
wondering. Why has it gone up in the last
and
2 years
up?
specifically, just as we have a problem with trying to staff these sorts of places?
Because it's been allowed to, and I would say it's related to the staffing thing. There's no staff that can do what they want.
And I think young men in general, I mean, you see it quite a lot now, more and more online. They're very disenfranchised with society. They feel very rejected, and this is quite a disturbing trend. Young men seem to have lost their place in society.
Yes, young men have lost their place. They've been demasculated by society. And Eamonn, I think you have made a very important point there about the staff, the staffing levels and the quality of the staff in these institutions. It would appear that they would just let them do what they want for fear of reprisals.
If you were to say to your kids, your family now, right, there's a number of jobs here, and would you like to be a prison officer? What are they going to say? Are you going to recommend them to do that? Are they going to do that?
It's not safe anymore.
Let's talk about blood donation now.
Yeah, let's talk about blood donation, Alex.
Yes, and hopefully a lighter story. So, big Marvel stars, these are household names, Hugh Jackman, of course, and Ryan Reynolds. They have a big new film coming out, which is Deadpool and Wolverine, so I think this is possibly a last hurrah for both of them in their roles. So, good friends off air as well, these guys. And they're out here in the UK, actually, and they quip online saying, our characters have spilled countless hot tubs worth of blood. but in the name of only in the name of entertainment. But don't worry, it's all fake. Real blood is harder to come by, and that's why the NHS needs heroes like you. And this is a really great message because we do need to donate more blood and more. There's a big, I think there's a fear almost around donating, but it's a bit stigmatised in society. And
but Alex,
really
hear the boys giving out that message. Just get an idea, better idea.
Characters have spilled countless hot tubs worth of blood in the name of entertainment. But don't worry, it's all fake. Mostly.
Real blood is harder to come by. That's why the NHS needs heroes like you to donate blood.
And there's particular types of blood that is in short supply as well, dangerously low levels of some types. Have you donated?
I have, yes. Yeah, a couple of years ago,
Did
donated.
you faint?
I do. I faint with every needle. I've got a massive fight card. I'm going to get ripped online by this. I know. But it's a real phobia. No, but I know. But every needle I have, whether it's an injection or something,
That's it.
It's a fight or flight mechanism.
Alex.
It's all right. It's not being a wuss about. I don't mind having it, but my brain just.
I did blood
yesterday. Did you? Yeah. Good for you, Eamonn.
Did you?
Good for you.
Did you faint?
No.
Yeah, see. That's a real man, Alex.
Come on, you're not helping people who do. It's OK if you pass out.
Absolutely.
It's okay.
It's
a fight or flight mechanism, everybody. It's all right if you pass out with a needle.
I recommend watching the needle go in and really just thinking about it rather than just letting it all be separate. Otherwise, I don't know, just getting...
I think it's the upbringing I had with all the brothers is you either fight or you run away. And
or you faint.
And at that moment, I'm going to faint because I'm not going to punch a nurse, so...
Oh, dear.
We've got to get you out of sight now. Alex, thank you. Nice seeing you again. Claire, always a pleasure. Thank you very much indeed.
Right, what's the weather going to be up to? It was miserable yesterday. It's going to be good at the end of the week. Here's all the details for today with Alex Burkill.
Looks like things are heating up. Boxed boilers, sponsors of weather on GB News.
Morning. Here's your latest GB News weather forecast coming to you from the Met Office. After a pretty wet day for many of us yesterday, there will still be a bit of rain and some heavy thundery showers as we go through today. The most persistent rain will be early on, and that is gradually clearing away towards the east as we go through this morning. Elsewhere then, a fair few showers kicking off, particularly across eastern parts of Scotland and northeast England. Here, some of these showers are going to be heavy and thundery with some hail and some lightning mixed in. A scattering of showers elsewhere, driest towards western parts, and temperatures still a little bit below average for the time of year. Highs of around 22 or 23 Celsius at best. Not feeling too bad, especially as the winds in the southeast are going to ease as we go through the day. Taking a closer look at what's going to be happening this evening, and across many parts of Scotland, it's looking mostly fine and dry. A bit of rain perhaps out towards the Outer Hebrides, but some heavy thundery downpours still continuing across eastern parts of Scotland. A scattering of showers perhaps for Northern Ireland, and then a real west-east split in terms of showers when it comes to England and Wales through the end of the day. Eastern parts likely to see some further showers through much of the day. Meanwhile, further west, it's looking a bit drier and brighter as we go through this evening. Overnight, we are going to see many of those showers clearing away, perhaps a few continuing over parts of Scotland and perhaps one or two elsewhere. But on the whole, it's looking largely dry, and with some clear skies developing, I'm expecting temperatures to drop a little bit lower than you might expect. Perhaps away from the towns and cities, we could get into single figures, and there could be the odd pocket of mist and fog around first thing tomorrow morning. Otherwise, Wednesday actually looks like a fairly decent day. Yes, there will be a bit more cloud and some rain pushing into parts of northwest Scotland, and here the winds will strengthen, and otherwise we could see a few showers developing as we go through the day, but for many it is going to stay largely dry. There will be some decent bright and sunny spells around, and with that it's going to feel warmer than it has done of late, with highs in the mid-20s. Bye-bye.
A brighter outlook with Box Solar, sponsors of weather on GB News.
The latest GB News travel.
Good morning, I'm Russell Holding. In Perth and Kinross, the A9 is partly blocked northbound where a lorry's broken down at the Inverolman roundabout in Perth, causing queues. On the A1M in West Yorkshire, the outside lane's closed northbound with an accident between the M1 and junction 44 at Tadcaster, with queues towards there. On the M62 in West Yorkshire, the eastbound exit is partly blocked at junction 31 at Castleford, where someone's broken down, with delays towards there from junction 29 for the M1. In Pembrokeshire on the A477, there are westbound queues towards Pembroke Dock at the Fingerpost junction at Upper Nash because of road works. On the M25 in Hertfordshire, the clockwise exit at junction 24 at Potters Bar is closed because of an accident. On the M23 in Surrey, there are northbound queues towards the M25 after traffic was stopped because of an accident, and train services in Cornwall are suspended between Liscard and Lewes after a train broke down.
You can stay up to date throughout the day by visiting our website, gbnews.com.
£30,000 in tax-free cash really could be yours. It's our biggest cash prize of the year so far, and you could be getting that winning call from us to tell you that you're our next Great British Giveaway winner.
Oh, I can't believe this.
Oh my God, this is amazing.
That is absolutely fantastic.
We're over the moon.
I've never won anything like this in my life.
Oh, you shocked me. I never won a penny in my life.
If I was there, I'd buy you a drink.
For another chance to win £30,000 in tax-free cash, text CASH to 63232. Text costs £2 plus one standard network rate message. You can enter online at gbnews.com/win. Entries cost £2. Or post your name and number to GB07 PO Box 8690 Derby DE1 9TT. UK only. Entrants must be 18 or over. Lines close at 5 p.m. on the 30th of August. Please check the closing time if listening or watching on demand. Good luck.
In the GB newsroom, we bring you the news as it happens.
With our team of dedicated journalists across the UK,
GB News brings you accurate reporting of the day's topical agenda.
When the news breaks, wherever and whenever it's happening,
we'll be there.
This is GB News,
the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Every Saturday, 10 till 12, we'll bring you all of the news that you need to know. We'll also remind you that there is so much to smile about.
It's my favourite time of the week. I get to relax, enjoy some light-hearted stories, and let Ellie teach me about fashion too.
That's Saturday Morning Live, every Saturday, 10 till 12.
Only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
Join me, Nana Akwe, for an informative, interactive news programme with a difference. It's fun.
It's true. You're not wrong. No one will be cancelled.
Lovely. Join me from 3 p.m. every weekend, only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
Good morning. A tearful Trump arrives at the Republican National Convention in Milwaukee.
As Ohio Senator J.D. Vance is announced as his running mate.
Trump now formally nominated as Republican candidate ahead of an official confirmation later this week.
Donald J. Trump. Donald J. Trump. Donald J. Trump. Donald John Trump.
Meanwhile, President Biden has given his first interview since the shooting, detailing his call with Donald Trump.
I told him how concerned I was and wanted to make sure I knew how he was actually doing. He sounded good. He said he was fine. And he thanked me for calling him. I told him he was literally in the prayers of Jill and me.
Heartbreak for Jay Slater's family as human remains are found by mountain rescue teams in Tenerife near his last known location.
Angela Rayner promises a devolution revolution to move power out of Westminster into local communities. Earlier, we spoke to Exchequer Secretary James Murray.
That putting those powers in the hands of local leaders is in a really important way of driving that economic growth. And if we can get economic growth up across the country, which is one of our central missions as a government, that's the way to make people better off.
The King and Queen continue their tour of the Channel Islands today after being upstaged by, well, two frisky cows.
Yes.
It may not be as wet as yesterday, but there is the risk of some thundery showers, particularly in the east of Scotland. I'll have more details coming up shortly.
1 minute, coming to 2 minutes nearly, past 9 o'clock on this Tuesday morning. Good morning to you. I'm Eamonn Holmes.
I'm Isabel Webster, and this is GB News Breakfast.
Well, the Republican National Congress and a tearful Donald Trump arriving there. And he spoke yesterday in Milwaukee.
Yes, it comes after he picked the bookies' favourite, the Ohio Senator J.D. Vance, as his running mate.
It's the first public appearance from President Trump since the attempted assassination on Saturday.
Well, let's speak now to our reporter, Charlie Peters, joins us in the studio. Good morning to you. An interesting sort of lesson. I've sort of a lot of us waking up to this character and trying to acquaint ourselves with him. Who is J.D. Vance, and what will this mean for any potential Trump presidency?
Well, he's the first millennial on a major party presidential ticket. In a few weeks, he'll turn 40, and if the polls are right, in a few months, he could be one of the most powerful men in the world. But he does have a very interesting background. Raised in Ohio and Kentucky. He wrote a book in 2016 called Hillbilly Elegy, talking about his childhood, an autobiographical memoir of his early life, referring to the Appalachian clan, those people, the white working class, the forgotten parts of the United States. And because of that heritage and that background, he's seen as a sort of a populist light on the American right. He is of that wing that's youthful Trumpism, and is sort of considered by many in the Republican Party as the future of Trumpism without Trump. Now, having joined the US Marines in his...
It's very interesting, Charlie. Is this going to be much different than what we're used to seeing from Trump?
Well, I think potentially, because he's an intellectual in his background. He went to Yale Law School. He graduated his undergraduate studies in just 2 years, having served in the US Marine Corps and in Iraq, for example. So he has a unique background. But then after all the legal work and the military service, he kind of disappeared into the capital world and worked in finance, working for a big Republican donor called Peter Thiel, a very influential man in finance and technology. And in 2016, when he wrote this book and was beginning to be seen as an intellectual figure in this new populist right space that was growing very rapidly in the United States, he actually distanced himself from Trump.
Well, more than distanced himself. He trashed him.
Yeah,
what did he say?
He referred to him as Hitler in a text revealed by a former Yale roommate of his. But since opening up in the Ohio Senate race, realising that there was that position, obviously sought Trump's approval and moved into adopting the pro-Trump stance, very much recognising him as the figure to rally around, the only figure to rally around if you want to succeed in the space.
It's quite a U-turn, isn't it? I mean, he described anyone who voted for Donald Trump in 2016 as an idiot. And he's also made lots of other controversial comments, not least about Britain, just last week. What was he saying then?
Yeah, so he's at the National Conservatism Conference, sort of the main conference for those who belong to his political persuasion, where he was making some very controversial comments about Britain, possibly in a jokey tone, referring to Britain as potentially the first Islamist country with nuclear weapons. Let's listen to a clip.
Way I have to beat up on the UK. Just one additional thing. I was talking with a friend recently, and we were talking about, one of the big dangers in the world, of course, is nuclear proliferation. Though, of course, the Biden administration doesn't care about it. And I was talking about, what is the first truly Islamist country that will get a nuclear weapon? And we were like, maybe it's Iran. Maybe Pakistan already kind of counts. And then we sort of finally decided maybe it's actually the UK, since Labour just took over. But to my Tory friends, I have to say, you guys have got to get a handle on this.
I mean,
natural talker, very commands that room and what he has to say there, and held the audience, and he got a laugh from him as well.
Sure, but you can imagine there's going to be a pretty stern reaction in Britain now as these comments, which are usually siphoned off among those who are likely to engage with the work of the National Conservatism Conference, as they sort of seep into the wider national consciousness in Britain, we're going to get some pretty stern reaction to that. And I can imagine that clip will be played to all sorts of Labour politicians saying, are you ready to work with this man?
We've got the speech coming from Donald Trump on Thursday at the end of the convention. He said he's ripped up the original version. He's going to be calling for unity. But in his appointment of J.D. Vance, I mean, is that a unity appointment? I mean, this is somebody in the immediate aftermath of the shooting who's one of the only ones from any side of the political spectrum, which we know is very divided in America, to come out and blame the shooting on President Biden.
Yeah, no, Trump's struck this presidential tone, hasn't he, since that shooting, trying to withdraw his usual barbs. But his attack dogs and all those immediately around him have not weakened their stance, very much directly laying the blame on Biden. It was interesting in that interview with Lester Holt with NBC last night when Biden was asked about his comments reportedly made to donors last week, where he said he wanted to put Trump on a bullseye. He said, I never said I put him in the crosshairs. So Biden's on the back foot there trying to defend that stance. And in many ways, this failed assassination attempt on Saturday has been an absolute lifeline for Biden, because all the conversation has moved away from should Biden step down. All those private efforts to remove him from being the presidential nominee for the Democratic Party has essentially ceased. There's some reporting now that it's restarted in private, but Nancy Pelosi and Barack Obama are understood to be the leading figures pushing for that. His chances of being the presidential nominee for the Democrats have surged since the shooting because campaigning stopped. There was a move to stop trying to push people away. It's a big change, and it's worked in his favour.
It might have shored up his position, but the polls have seen his position actually weakening in the states when he's up against Trump in 7 of those deciding states, swing states.
And I think actually the shooting may have made it easier to pick J.D. Vance, because that's a move where you're not trying to appeal to a wider base. This is Trump part 2. This is a man who thinks like him. There's no need to appeal to a broader American public with that selection. This is a Trump who's extremely confident.
Charlie Peters, appreciate it. Thank you very much indeed. A body believed to be that of the missing British teenager Jay Slater has been found in Tenerife.
Formal identification is yet to take place, but the remains were found with Jay's clothes and his possessions.
Spanish rescue teams made the discovery yesterday morning, with the police suggesting the person may have suffered an accident or fall in an inaccessible zone.
Well, earlier, former Scotland Yard detective Peter Blexley had this to say on the rescue team's efforts.
Focused their search in and around this incredibly difficult terrain of gullies, ravines, caves and the such like, and huge undergrowth, which is sometimes impossible to navigate. They stuck to that theory. They didn't listen to all the other noise being created on social media platforms, the gossip, the rumours, the conspiracy theories. And so I think at the end of the day, bearing in mind that they were the best informed group of people out of anybody, I think they will probably say to themselves, we were right at the start, we were right throughout, and now our procedures have probably been vindicated.
Let's now go to our northwest of England reporter Sophie Reaper, who is in the Lancashire village where Jay Slater's from. Sophie, good morning.
Good morning to you both. Yes, 3.5 weeks ago here at the West End Methodist Church in Oswestwhistle, as you say, Jay Slater's hometown, there was a vigil held here where members of the community as well as Jay's friends and family could gather. They exchanged prayers and messages of hope for Jay's safe return. Now, 3.5 weeks on, I'm told by the church this morning, there will be another vigil held here this evening, the doors opening at 7 p.m. for members of the community to gather, but unfortunately the tone will be a rather different one. Instead, it'll be a case of them offering support to the members of the community that attend in what they're describing as a devastating time. Now, this, of course, comes at the news yesterday that remains have been found close to Jay Slater's last known location in the Mascar village region of Tenerife. Of course, incredibly devastating news. We are still waiting for that formal identification, as Isabel said there, whilst there's an autopsy ongoing. But we do know that those remains were found close by to Jay's possessions and his clothing. So those are some things that we're waiting on confirmation on. But here are a few things that we do know for definite. We know that Jay was in Tenerife attending a music festival with friends. We know he was last heard from on the 17th of June around 8:30 in the morning when he rang a friend to say that he was going to try and make the journey back to their accommodation on foot, an 11-hour walk. He also told the friend that he had limited water and that his phone was on 1% battery. And then after that, things become a lot murkier. We know that the Civil Guard has been carrying out that search ever since. In a statement yesterday, they said this discovery was possible thanks to the incessant and discreet search carried out by the Civil Guard during these 29 days, in which the natural space was preserved so that it would not be filled with onlookers. We also know that throughout this almost a month now since Jay Slater went missing, the case has been filled with controversies, those online sleuths creating difficulties for the civil guard. There was also the issues with the GoFundMe, people questioning that. Now, in the past almost 24 hours now since that it was released about the remains, there's been around £6,000 donated to that GoFundMe. But the message now, instead of "we hope that Jay can come home," those messages now reflect a different sentiment. They now say, "We're so sorry for your loss." Now, of course, as I say, we are still waiting for the official confirmation, that formal identification, but the mood here in Oswestwhistle has certainly changed to the hope that was here 3.5 weeks ago.
Sophie, appreciate that roundup. Thank you very much indeed. The time is 12 minutes past 9.
And just a reminder, there's still plenty of time for your chance to win £30,000 in the Great British Giveaway.
Very, very nice. And it could be yours.
£30,000 in tax-free cash really could be yours. It's our biggest cash prize of the year so far. And you could be getting that winning call from us to tell you that you're our next Great British Giveaway winner.
Oh, I can't believe this.
Oh my God, this is amazing.
That is absolutely fantastic.
We're over the moon.
I've never won anything like this in my life.
Oh, you shocked me. I never won a penny in my life.
If I was there, I'd buy you a drink.
For another chance to win £30,000 in tax-free cash, text CASH to 63232. Text costs £2 plus one standard network rate message. You can enter online at gbnews.com/win. Entries cost £2. Or post your name and number to GB07 PO Box 8690 Derby DE1 9TT. UK only. Entrance must be 18 or over. Lines close at 5 p.m. on the 30th of August. Please check the closing time if listening or watching on demand. Good luck.
Well, we've been out and about following the King and Queen. They're in the Channel Isles. They're continuing that tour there today.
Yeah, Jersey Royals they've been a pair of, and we'll be getting an update after this.
Good afternoon, Britain.
Your lunchtime update on the stories that matter across the UK.
From breaking news and insightful analysis, inspiring stories and lively debates. You're comparing yourself to a former Prime Minister.
Which is it? Stay informed, stay updated, stay entertained.
I just don't know how anyone would not want to be there.
Every weekday from midday.
We are Good Afternoon Britain, only on GB News.
Britain's news channel.
Sir Jacob Rees-Mogg's State of the Nation, Monday to Thursday from 8 p.m.
Well, I'm joined now by royal biographer and former royal photographer, Ian Lloyd. Ian,
hello, Jacob.
Thank you good evening. Thank you for joining me. This is going to be great, isn't it? The opportunity to go around and see where the King comes onto the balcony from. Really interesting insight to how Buckingham Palace works.
It's exciting. I went yesterday, there was a press preview, and the thing that struck me first of all is that if you're the King and or the late Queen and you're on the balcony, you can't see the Mall. I mean, we all see people coming down from the top, thousands of people crowding in towards Buckingham Palace. They can't see it because of this great monument to Queen Victoria called the Queen Victoria Memorial, or they call it the wedding cake, but it blocks the view. So apparently the King has a TV in there. And the late Queen did as well. So what they do is they when they're waiting to come on, they're watching the TV to see how the crowd's getting nearer the palace. And the other thing that struck me is when we were on it looking down, is you can actually see individual faces in the crowd out there because we looked out, So they do get a good view of what's happening directly underneath the palace,
So they can see individuals. So if there's a friendly face in the crowd, they can see that person and possibly even wave. But they can't see that enormous mass of people you get at the big events that goes back towards Admiralty Arch.
The other thing I learned is there's a great historical link because the person that put the east wing on the palace, because it was originally 3 sides, and Queen Victoria had, of course, 9 children, so they had to build a 4th side for all the nurseries and things. Edward Blord was the architect, but the master builder was Thomas Cubitt.
GB News, the People's Channel.
Join me, Camilla Tominey, for a frank and honest discussion with those in power that cuts through the spin and gets to the heart of the issues shaping our nation.
You haven't confirmed that you want to stand as leader, but you haven't ruled it out either.
This report basically says that he's not fit to stand trial. Is he indecisive? Incompetent? I deliver the dose of reality Westminster needs. That's the Camilla Tominey Show at 9:30 every Sunday on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel. Join me, Camilla Tominey, for a frank and honest discussion with those in power that cuts through the spin and gets to the heart of the issues shaping our nation.
You haven't confirmed that you want to stand as leader, but you haven't ruled it out either.
This report basically says that he's not fit to stand trial. Is he indecisive? Incompetent? I deliver the dose of reality Westminster needs. That's the Camilla Tominey Show at 9:30 every Sunday on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Earlier on the show, we were talking about manners and expectations that different generations have. And Gary says, as youngsters, we were brought up to respect our elders, be polite, use manners. You wouldn't dream of disrespecting an elderly person. And certainly on a bus, you would give up your seat and stand. It's just the way we were brought up. I brought my children up the same, and their children are being brought up the same. It's not rocket science.
Yeah, I'm bringing up my children the same as well. Claire is bang on. Some things are just basic. Chew with your mouth closed, give up your seat, hold open the doors, and why so many people find it so difficult to say excuse me baffles me. Irrespective of parents, not to be nanny state, but schools should be reinforcing etiquette basics.
Jane, good morning to you. Here's an interesting point. Here, she says about all of this. It's shocking the way young people cannot hold cutlery. They don't even know how to place table settings because, and this is a very good point, they don't eat at a table. You see, increasingly people don't buy tables. Developers who build houses don't create dining rooms now because there's no need for them. So do you sit on a couch with your food on your lap? Do you think you need a table? Does a table not bring a family together and get them talking? There's maybe more to it than just eating food.
Also, are you one of those people that's afraid to give up your seat for fear of insulting someone? Because that can happen.
No, I know it can. But...
My ex-boyfriend's dad had white hair. We were all on a family day out, and someone offered to give him his seat, and he was absolutely mortified. He's like, I've got white hair. I'm perfectly fit as a fiddle.
You don't have a sense of
Steve says, I got up to offer a seat to an elderly woman on the tube once, and I got a mouthful for being sexist. So you can't win.
Well. Depends what way you deal with it. The King and Queen, both very elderly, both a lot of fun as well. And they were forced to briefly cut short an engagement in Jersey yesterday due to a security alert.
Yeah, it was a false alarm, but they've had to endure heavy downpours whilst they've been on this tour. But the Majesty's spirits haven't been dampened at all. They've been highlighting the special and historic relationship between the Channel Islands and the royal family, which stretches back for centuries.
Our royal correspondent, Cameron Walker, has been following them.
The moment the Queen was hastily ushered to safety following a security alert in Jersey's capital, St Helier. She and her husband, King Charles, forced to cut short an engagement showcasing the island's industries and net zero targets in an open-air location. Royal sources have now confirmed after every precaution was taken, which appears to include taking cover in a nearby hotel, the small issue of concern turned out to be a false alarm, and Their Majesties resumes the day as normal. The King and Queen are on a 2-day visit to the Channel Islands, their first since Charles's accession, and represents the special relationship the royal family has with the bailiwicks, which dates back to the 1100s. The mace, gifted to Jersey by Charles II way back in 1663, took part in yesterday's special ceremony with King Charles III in Royal Square.
Mr. Bailiff, I am most grateful to you and to the States for the warm welcome you've extended to both my wife and myself, and for the assurances of devotion, loyalty and allegiance to the Crown you have expressed on behalf of the people of Jersey.
Pomp and pageantry as well as heavy rain follows the King and Queen from the UK. A royal gun salute was fired by the 1781 militia before the King met local lawmakers. and homage was paid. The royal couple gifted locally laid duck eggs as a symbol of sustenance, as well as 7 Jersey cows, which will be taken to the King's Highgrove estate. Although the Queen got a bit of a shock when 2 of them started the breeding season early. They finished the day with a tea party, attended by veterans, royal patronages and emergency service workers. Today, Charles and Camilla travelled to Guernsey for an ancient ceremony in honour of the island's monarch. Cameron Walker, GB News.
But they didn't start the breeding season early. They are 2 female cows.
Riding.
That's what they're doing. And they're sending out a message saying, has anybody got a big bull around here?
Because they're going in season.
Yes, that's what they're actually doing.
Yeah.
Ben
Very
Leo
common.
with us now, and he's with Bev from 9:30. My friend, what are you doing?
It's good to see the LGBT scene moving into agriculture. Nice. Look, of course, we're going to be covering Jay Slater, Donald Trump's VP pick, of course, as well. But just to break up the day, something a bit lighter. Apparently, I'm not sure if you've seen this, half of Brits admit to eating their dinner in the evening regularly in front of the television. Is that a problem? Are we losing our manners and decorum?
Or formality.
I don't even think it's manners and formality. I like and enjoy to sit down with my husband at the table and catch up on the day. So, you know, whatever. I actually get offended if we don't sit down together to eat.
I do it sometimes if the kids are in bed and it's a late dinner and it's something we've rustled up, but never with the kids. I always like to have the kids at the table.
Yeah. It's a very casual thing, and it depends what your furniture is like and what your home is like and how big or small that is. But I agree with you. It depends on who you're having it with.
Yes. Definitely. Elsewhere, Ofwat, the water regulator, they've opened investigations into 4 more water companies for an issue very close to my heart, living by the sea. The amount of times, I've said it like a broken record on this channel, the amount of times I've gone down to the coast to have a swim with my kids in the sea and I can't because they're pumping filth into the water. Anyway, all the water companies
It's going to come to a stage where we'll look back at this in years to come and say, to think in 2024 they actually pump this rubbish literally crap into the sea.
It's, you know, a nation literally swimming in its own filth is, I mean, the personification of where we are, I suppose, at the moment at least.
That's a cheery note to end on.
Yeah, good morning to you.
Look forward to it, Ben.
Have a happy week.
Thanks, my friend.
Thanks very much.
Have a happy week, a happy day. We're going to be back tomorrow morning from 6. I do hope you can join us.
Up next, it's, of course, Ben and Bev. In the meantime, here's one last look at the forecast for you. Bye-bye.
A brighter outlook with Box Solar, sponsors of weather on GB News.
Morning. Here's your latest GB News weather forecast coming to you from the Met Office. After a pretty wet day for many of us yesterday, there will still be a bit of rain and some heavy thundery showers as we go through today. The most persistent rain will be early on, and that is gradually clearing away towards the east as we go through this morning. Elsewhere then, a fair few showers kicking off, particularly across eastern parts of Scotland and northeast England. Here, some of these showers are going to be heavy and thundery with some hail and some lightning mixed in. A scattering of showers elsewhere, driest towards western parts, and temperatures still a little bit below average for the time of year. Highs of around 22 or 23 Celsius at best. Not feeling too bad, especially as the winds in the southeast are going to ease as we go through the day. Taking a closer look at what's going to be happening this evening, and across many parts of Scotland, it's looking mostly fine and dry. A bit of rain perhaps out towards the Outer Hebrides, but some heavy thundery downpours still continuing across eastern parts of Scotland. A scattering of showers perhaps for Northern Ireland, and then a real west-east split in terms of showers when it comes to England and Wales through the end of the day. Eastern parts likely to see some further showers through much of the day. Meanwhile, further west, it's looking a bit drier and brighter as we go through this evening. Overnight, we are going to see many of those showers clearing away, perhaps a few continuing over parts of Scotland and perhaps 1 or 2 elsewhere. But on the whole, it's looking largely dry, and with some clear skies developing, I'm expecting temperatures to drop a little bit lower than you might expect. Perhaps away from the towns and cities, we could get into single figures, and there could be the odd pocket of mist and fog around first thing tomorrow morning. Otherwise, Wednesday actually looks like a fairly decent day. Yes, there will be a bit more cloud and some rain pushing into parts of northwest Scotland, and here the winds will strengthen, and otherwise we could see a few showers developing as we go through the day, but for many it is going to stay largely dry. There will be some decent bright and sunny spells around, and with that it's going to feel warmer than it has done of late, with highs in the mid-20s. Bye-bye.
That warm feeling inside. From Boxed Boilers, sponsors of weather on GB News.
The latest GB News travel.
Good morning, I'm Russell Holding in North Yorkshire on the A19. The northbound entry slip road from the A174 at Thornaby is partly blocked, causing delays. On the M62 in West Yorkshire, the eastbound exit at junction 31 at Castleford is partly blocked by a breakdown, causing delays towards there from junction 29 for the M1. In Pembrokeshire on the A477, there are westbound queues towards Pembroke Dock at Upper Nash because of roadworks at the Fingerpost junction. In Norfolk, Derham Road in Norwich is closed westbound off Guardian Road because of a burst water main causing delays. In London, Abingdon Street's closed at Parliament Square ahead of the state opening of Parliament. In Essex on the A127, there's a lane closed westbound. There was an accident just before the Fairglen interchange at Rayleigh causing delays as you divert. And in Surrey, the A24 remains closed northbound in sections from Bear Green to Leatherhead after a diesel spill last week.
You can stay up to date throughout the day by visiting our website, gbnews.com.
Patrick Christie's Tonight. Weekdays from 9 p.m.
Should Prince Harry have accepted an award named after a US war hero at a glitzy ceremony last night? People begged him not to, but he did it anyway. It's time for tonight's head-to-head. Well, Prince Harry paid tribute to the eternal bond between mother and son as he appeared alongside his wife, Meghan Markle, at the glitzy ESPY Awards, dubbed the Sporting Oscars last night. The Duke accepted the Pat Tillman Award, named after a US war hero, for his Invictus Games work. But Harry's decision to accept the award was shrouded in controversy after more than 76,000 people signed a petition demanding he reverse his decision. Well, speaking last night, Harry paid tribute to Pat Tillman's mother, Mary. But that comes after Mary Tillman slammed his decision to give Prince Harry the gong, saying, "I am shocked as to why they would select such a controversial and divisive individual to receive the award. There are recipients that are far more fitting. These individuals do not have the money, resources, connections or privilege that Prince Harry has." So tonight I'm asking, should Harry have actually accepted the award? Let me know your thoughts. Go to gbnews.com/your say. Tweet me at GBNews and make sure you take part in our poll. But going head-to-head on this now, a former royal butler, Grant Harold, and the journalist and broadcaster,